Hello, I'm Eagle Gardens 1 on Instagram, and this is fucking Talking Shit with Eagle, episode 400. Hopefully you guys have had an amazing weekend. I sure have. A little late start tonight, but sometimes it's hard to get things scheduled around the world. I am super grateful for the opportunity to talk to Trichome Jungle. How you doing tonight? You want to tell us how you're doing? And of course, where we can find you if we're looking?
Yeah, nice one for having me on the show. Trichome Jungle Seeds on Instagram. That's where I spend a lot of my time and do a lot of my posts nowadays. Yeah.
Can you hear me, Trichome Jungle?
Yeah, now I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, I lost you there for a second. Sorry about that. So did you hear me introduce you? I lost you right after I kind of introduced things. Were you able to hear me when I introduced you?
No, I missed that bit then.
Sorry about that. Hopefully they heard me out there. Basically, I asked you to tell us how you're doing and, of course, where they can find you. Sorry about the glitch first off.
Yeah, so basically Instagram is where I spend a lot of time and do a lot of my posts nowadays. Yeah, that's my main place basically.
I appreciate you taking the time to come out and hang out tonight, that's for sure. So what are you smoking on? Did you bring something to smoke on?
Yeah, at the moment I'm just smoking some East Coast Sour Diesel, the original clone. One of my friends sent me some of this. And some Tropical Rose. That's my next spliff that I'm going to be lighting up. That's grown by a good friend of mine from some of my genetics. So yeah, enjoying those two. It's nice to actually smoke some Sour Diesel. I haven't had the original one for quite some time.
Oh, Sour D is always delicious. Always delicious. I am getting ready to roll up a little bit of Twisted TK and a little bit of Jelly Bean from the original TGA era kind of seeds there. Really good.
Yeah, Jelly Bean. I love the Jelly Bean. Sub cool when we were back on Breed Bay. Another great guy who just taught a lot of us so much. He was just so open about sharing information and stuff like that. Really cool guy. But yeah, what else did you say? The TK Triangle Kush?
Twisted TK, that's bred by Deep Southern Genetics, and that is the TJ by times his Twisted Manja, which is kind of one of his house strains. Really good, really fuely.
Yeah, the TK, I've worked for the TK, but only in crosses. So I used the SFV times TK and the Tahoe times TK, both from Colorado. Did a selection from those seeds, and yeah, amazing stuff came out of them.
Yeah, it's a strong one. It seems to be something that's being passed around quite a bit lately. So, or you hear about quite a bit. I shouldn't say that. So let's get to know a little bit about Trichome Jungle seeds here. When exactly did cannabis enter your life? How did it enter your journey?
Well, my first experience with cannabis I was quite young, probably about 14, smoking tobacco mixed with hashish. probably a Moroccan type. There was some like Lebanese hash around at the time. So yeah, it was a mix of tobacco and hash. That's how I started. Actually, flowers came much later on. And when they did, it was more of a Thai stick type of thing, or a compressed Caribbean or African type of flower, but very compressed, almost to the point where it's like a compressed brick, and you could literally cut through it with a knife. Very seeded. Sensimilia and like unseeded flower, and things like skunk came much later into my life. So yeah, it was more of the import stuff that I was brought up on.
It always blows my mind that you know, it's kind of in the reverse over there with us and you guys. You guys kind of had the hash first, we had flour, and now we're going towards the extract / hash, and you guys coming more into the flour over there. It's a weird kind of flip flop.
Yeah, I think because in America you had the opportunity to plant the seeds. So you had a lot of seeds coming back from maybe the hippies from their travels, also from Mexico and South America. And you've got the climate that you can literally put the seeds in the ground in a lot of places in America. Whereas in the UK, that wasn't an option for us. We didn't have the climate. I remember starting some Thai seeds and they never even finished. So yeah, I think it was more to do with climate and being able to grow those genetics out.
It also kind of throws me off the mix of tobacco with the hash as well. Is that kind of just a way to make it burn or stretch it out, or just another way to kind of add to the effects a little bit?
Yeah, the tobacco. Like now, I've stopped smoking tobacco. Now and again, if I'm with friends, I'll smoke some hash and tobacco mixed. But it's not something that I smoke very often now because I've come away from the tobacco. But the effects of the tobacco mixed with the hash is definitely different to smoking it by itself. I think a lot of the tobacco smoking came from the original cultures. A lot of these cultures would mix tobacco with the hash. And then with people in the UK smoking a lot of tobacco in general, they would just mix that little bit of hash with the tobacco. Yeah, and it would burn relatively well mixed with the tobacco. The only other option would be smoking it out of a pipe or a bong, which I found wasn't super popular. People like to smoke a joint. It was something that they could pass around maybe at a party or things like this. Yeah.
Definitely a lot easier transport, that's for sure. Light up and pass. You don't have to worry about breaking that pipe or hauling it around.
That's it. Chillum, the chillum, like when we were in India, we were smoking a lot of chillums. And that is like more of a sort of ceremonial way of smoking, and you actually pass it round, you know what I mean? But then even with the chillums, a lot of people will do like a tobacco mix with the hashish and put into the chillum. But I actually prefer it with just hash if I'm smoking a chillum.
That's one thing that I think that's very key in the cannabis experience is the passing. What's your thoughts on that, especially with the now times where people are like rolling their own, which I get it, but I think it's such a waste. You go out to an event, you get 6 people standing around, you roll 6 good joints. That's almost a quarter. You know what I mean? A quarter ounce of weed for one
Yeah.
sesh for everybody to smoke their own, when that same sesh could be done with one. You know what I mean? Possibly two. You know, why waste twice as much? It's but it to me it takes away from that experience of just, you know, sharing the moment, taking that hit. This is good, you know, passing bread type thing. What are your thoughts on the whole passing thing? Are you for it, or do you think it adds? Or
See, nowadays we don't tend to share spliffs so much. Like it's like when we were younger, it was more of a pass around, share type thing. But nowadays, everyone just tends to make their own spliffs. I'll pass them the jar. I'll be like, yeah, make a spliff. So everyone does tend to smoke their own. Now and again, if it's something different that someone's just harvested and they've just made a spliff, they might pass it and say, try that. But yeah, other than that, we tend to roll our own joints. I think each person sort of enjoys how they make it themselves, almost. Yeah.
I can understand that a bit, but I still think that takes away. So is everybody smoking their own? So is it like, you know, a bunch of different kinds, or are we at least, you know, breaking off some buds? You know, here, try this. You know what I mean? Roll your own of this.
Oh yeah, everyone's always sharing and passing out things to try. So if I go to my friend's house or if they come here, we've always got some different bits to smoke. Yeah. At the moment, we're smoking a lot of the lilt crosses. So I crossed the lilt with a lot of my mother plants from my library, and the results, we're smoking a lot of them at the moment. Lilt crossed with 100 hand slap, which is the tropical rose, and lilt with the soulmate from Bodhi. So that's the tropical soul. That's a really nice one. Been smoking a few of my friend's hybrids that he's been making. One of them, Nos, using the Hell's Fuel, which is one of my lines, which he selected a plant from, and used another male to make the Nos. But yeah, so I've got a few different things to smoke on at the moment, all smelling beautiful. Yeah.
It sounds delicious, man. You got some fire looking strains if you look down on the page. So when did it go from, you know, necessarily smoking, trying a little bit of hash, tobacco? When did it kind of come into, you know, when did growing come into the whole scene?
Basically, after trying some of the like lamb racy type things, imports that were coming over, we'd find seeds in them, and I just had the natural thing to start popping some of the seeds, and they would germinate and they'd stretch up on the windowsill and die, and it was just like, okay. And then one time I decided to grow some outside, and they actually grew, but they never finished flowering because our season is just so short. Then I got a light and decided to try and grow a plant under a light. And this was still at a time where we hadn't figured out the whole, when it goes to 12-12 is when it starts to flower. So it was literally just a plant vegging up. And then eventually I found a book and I figured out, okay, you change the lights to 12 hours on, 12 hours off, and the plant starts to flower. As soon as I figured that out and seen it actually working, so I started flowering a plant and seeing that it started making the pistils on it. And at that point I was like, right, I'm buying some seeds. I got a packet of Hindu Kush and a 250 HPS light and went to work. and that was probably how old, maybe like 19, maybe 20, something around that sort of age. And then from there, I never really stopped. The breeding came much later. So after a few years of collecting different genetics and things like this, I found some seeds in a nice haze plant in Holland. And I spoke to the guy in the coffee shop, and he was like, "Oh yes, it's a haze crossed with a Santa Maria male." So I was like, okay, that's interesting. So I took the seeds home and I popped them and found a male, and I crossed that with a nap plant. And that was my first proper hybrid. And then from there, I carried on breeding and doing this. And then later on, started Trichome Jungle Seeds around 2008. So, and that was at the time when a lot of us were on Breed Bay, a forum back in the day. So Subcool was on there, Dynasty, Professor P, Bodie, Sonic. There was like a really good crowd of us, Texas Kid. Yeah, loads of us anyway. So it was a cool little community, and everybody just was just very open to share information and show what they were doing. And it was, yeah, just a good place for people to come and learn.
What a beautiful chance to be at a coffee shop, get some seeds like that. I remember back in the day when I was getting some early on here in the early phases, when you could get some from the provisioning centers. And it was still caregiver grown, and you could probably still get a chance to get a seed here and there. Anytime I got one, I would go back in there, be like, "Oh man, I got some seeds out of that." And they always took it as a complaint, you know, and more of a heads up than a complaint and a thank you. You know, they were like, "Oh, you know, that sucks." I was always like, no, thank you. Thank you. I labeled and put it aside. You know what I mean? You know, I always looked at those as, you know, nice little opportunities, not necessarily a bad thing. So, and it seemed to work out well for you. What a golden opportunity it seems like.
Yeah, that's it. Like, and you got to taste the flower that you found the seeds from. So normally if you were to buy a packet of seeds, you just be reading what's on the packet. Whereas the flower that I was smoking was a really beautiful flower, and finding seeds in it, I was like, okay, I've actually found seeds in something that I actually like the taste of. So yeah, it was like a double bonus. That's it.
So what was the first grow? I mean, you told us, you know, a little bit of light there, but I mean, what was like medium? Like how many plants was do you mind sharing?
The first time growing, was basically like I said, the Hindu Kush, but it was literally a couple of seeds I started, ended up with one female under the light, and was feeding really basic stuff, basically a little bit of chicken shit, some wood ash and paper ash for the potassium, and stuff like this. And that's basically was just like a very simple grow where I was making everything myself. At that time, there was no hydro shops or a shop that I could go to. I could go to a garden centre and buy some Miracle Grow, but that wasn't really an option that I wanted to do. When I was reading the book, in the book it told you that you could get certain nutrients from certain types of different options. One of them was chicken poo, wood ash, things like this. So I went down that route rather than buying some Miracle Grow or something like this.
Good choice. Good choice. You sound like you were taking the right path right from the beginning.
Yeah, later on, I think I bought some, after reading a little bit more about growing cannabis and that, I ended up buying some, I found a product in Holland, Guna Colon, and I was using that for teas and things like this for a little bit. But yeah, later on, I moved over to like a bottled feed, which was a BioBiz, and I used that for many years. So yeah, and soil was always my preferred way of growing. I've grown many other ways since then. So after coming to Spain, I started growing in cocoa a lot more. I'd done a little bit of deep water culture, but now I'm totally back on the other end, organic, making my own ferments and teas. And yeah, basically just at the moment using like a super soil mix, but still feeding them like stinging nettle tea, and I'll be moving on to some other teas later on and ferments.
So let's kind of like back up, work our way through this a little bit. So I asked this of all my guests that have been growing for a while. Did you notice anything change when you started to cultivate the plant, on how you felt, or actually, the effects? From I don't want to say that. I'm gonna stop right there. Did you notice anything different when you started growing the plant, about the way you felt about cannabis or the plant in general?
Say that last bit again. Sorry, mate.
About did you notice anything different about the way you felt about the plant or cannabis in general when you
after growing? Oh
yeah.
Well, I just instantly, once I started learning more about the plant and actually growing, like my whole view of cannabis totally changed. And because before it was just something that we did recreationally, and then I've just found this plant that was teaching me every single day something new, about growing, and then later on about electronics, electrics, wiring things, photography, all the stuff that I've learned from the plant. It's always been teaching me from that point, even to the point where I was feeding the plant better than I was feeding myself. And I started to look at, whoa, hang on, what am I actually eating? I'm giving the plant all its perfect nutrition to make sure it's healthy, but I'm not doing this to myself. And so, yeah, growing the plant taught me to start looking after myself more as well, and start giving myself what I actually need nutritionally and things like this. So, yeah, definitely made me look at everything differently. Yeah.
That is such a common answer, and I think that's one of the reason I asked is because I really believe that's one of the most beneficial parts of cannabis, to be honest with you. And that's one of the biggest reasons I encourage growing the plant, is because that's, for me and a lot of other people, that's when I noticed the change too. As medical cannabis came here, I started growing before it was medical, but as it became medical, it deepened it for me. I noticed that change too, but that is most definitely the most beneficial and therapeutic parts of the plant. I mean, yes, there is a medical benefit from using the plant, in different ways, but there's so much more from actually growing it. Like you said, gaining of intelligence, the overall good feeling, and I think it brings much more goodness out of the plant than we ever thought it would. So I think that's huge, the cultivation side of cannabis. I think that's the more beneficial side of it all. Yeah, I mean, the smoking and the using of it is good, but man, the growing side of it, I think, is equal to the consumption, to be honest with
Yeah, I think just humans in general, especially in the Western world, have lost their connection to a lot of things. And I think cannabis actually gives it back to us, especially when we're growing it. And it helps us connect back to nature, farming, growing stuff, nutrition, all of these things that we're missing out on, that would have been just normal everyday knowledge back at one time. Everybody would know how to grow something. Everyone would know what they should be eating. So yeah, I think definitely helps us connect back to that side of us.
With that being said, how does it affect? How does your personal taste come into play a lot into play when you're putting together strains? Is it, basically your taste, and then you're hoping everybody else will like it, or do you are you feeling out the general crowd and trying to match what might be good?
No, I think when something's, has an amazing terp to it, it has an amazing terp. You might have a small percentage of people that actually don't like it, but I think, everyone likes strawberries. We'll say, for instance, if someone likes something sweet, strawberries, there might be a few people that don't like them, but the majority will find something like that quite sweet and tasty. So I think it's the same with our taste buds and our smell. So I tend to pick things that are quite pleasant on the nose for my selections, like things like the Mandarina, that pineapple-y, orange, tropical type things tend to really stand out, especially in extract. And then I also like the sort of like gassy things, like the sour diesel things. I've done like a lot of lines that have that gas type stuff. The cherry spice is on the like cookie side. Some more like the cherry spice is on that like cherry cookie, cherry pie side of things. So I have all different lines, and it depends which one. They all have their own sort of special terp, but I try to pick a lot of different things so everyone is happy. So everyone can pick something that they'll like from my seeds. My library is very varied, so you could look at each one of my mother plants, and each is very unique for its terpene profile.
It's kind of hard to do with a full menu like that to get a unique terpene profile for each individual strain or cultivar. And you've got a pretty impressive menu from what I've looked at. But we're rushing. We'll work to the menu. So when you started your breeding there, how did you progress? I mean, the first time was, you got the seeds from that bud there in Amsterdam. But how did you move forward after that? How was the next strain introduced?
Yeah, like after that, I just gave a lot of the seeds out, just to see the results, see what people thought of it. And then later on, I used I worked that line. I made it into an F2 line from the F1. So I did brothers and sisters from that line, that first line, and crossed them together. So start almost working like an inbred line, but you call it the F1 generation, then you go to the F2 generation. So, and then at that time, I'd been given some seeds by Sonic Seeds, and I'd done a selection from those seeds and found a male in them as well. And that male I used on a few of my clones that I had at the time. And then from that, I just growing out those seeds, seeing the different results from those seeds, and then later on figuring out which lines I would like to continue working with. So it was a slow progression of growing things out, but like the forums really helped to be able to give those seeds out to people and see the results that other people had and get their feedback. And once I started getting good feedback from people, we had like the option to sell the seeds on like a seed auction type thing. You could have like a buy now price, so they didn't have to go into the auction, or you could put them up into the auction bit. So I put a few of my packet seeds on there after people started to inquire about them, and that was the first time that I actually started to sell sort of seeds through the Breed Bay auction, and later on through other seed sellers like people like Attitude and things like this, but that came much later. So for many years it was literally just growing them out and passing them out to friends and people on the forums.
I would think that the forums have to be the backbone of something like that for back then. I mean, I don't know. I don't live over there, but I would think even now things aren't as open as they are here, to where you just like, here's free seeds. You want to grow something, test things? Yeah, I would think that you were kind of, limited to the, the friends and the people that you trusted in the forums to, get the gear tested and, get the word out there. And back in the day, it was, how hard would it be? How hard was it to kick off the seed thing over there?
Yeah, I think it'd be much quicker nowadays with how it works nowadays. But like it was just more of a. Do you know what? I didn't even think I was going to start a seed company at first. It was literally just doing something that I really enjoyed doing. And then the idea of a seed company wasn't a seed company. It was just to have a name behind it. I couldn't have even imagined at the time that it would progress to where it is now. So yeah, it was more of literally just doing something that I really enjoyed and just doing some pollen checking and seeing the results. And it was more about just the fun and pleasure out of it. But yeah.
Well, shout out to you, brother, for putting forth the effort, making it happen. Because like I said, the more people that we can get growing, the more people we can get healthier, we can get more people into the community and discovering all the great things that cannabis has to offer. But overall, it helps. It helps. Congratulations for getting the seed company out there. I mean, and thank you because we can't grow without seeds. Well, we can, but it's harder to get clones. It's easier to pass some seeds, especially around the world. I mean, how do you feel about seeing your strains pop up around the world? That's got to be a pretty humbling feeling. So
no, that's like part of like that's what. Yeah, it's such a nice feeling. It keeps me doing what I do in it, just to see the work be appreciated by people like all around the world, innit? So yeah, that's an amazing feeling to have. But I appreciate everybody that buys my seeds and like every bit of support that anyone gives my company. Yeah, I really appreciate from everybody. But yeah, it's such a nice feeling.
So what was the name of number 2? Did you name 1 and 2? Or were they just, this is what they are? Are they still available to this date? I mean, do you keep some for, have seeds for personal reasons?
Yeah, so the first crosses, it was, I named it Mantis in the end. So it was Mantis F1 and Mantis F2. I made the F3 generation as well. I made a few different Mantis crosses that have been available. So yeah, people have grown them out, but they're not lines that I work with too much nowadays. the library I use nowadays has changed quite a lot from what I was using back in the day. The only thing that I kept from the original stock that I have is the Bubba Kush, the pre-98 Bubba Kush clone that I got hold of at the time. That's the only thing from back then. Everything else is pretty much within the last 8 years. So anything from the old school days, I've pretty much stopped using.
Well, you have to progress. You have to progress. And we're speaking of progresses. So how did things roll from there? I mean, how did the setup change? What did come into play for some of the up and coming strains you created?
Yeah. Well, since I came to Spain, I got to grow out a lot of stuff outdoors. So that changed a lot of things for me. The selection process. I'd grown outdoors in the UK, but it was always the plants that you could select for there was very different. Here you could grow out anything that you wanted outdoors. And we've got quite a long growing season. So you could even grow out like the more like purer type sativa hazes as well. So yeah, and the testing of my plants to see what they could handle outside. That became a big part of my my breeding as well. So selecting the strongest plants that were resistant to different pathogens, different molds, mildews, resistant to bugs. So yeah, that definitely changed my my style. But my breeding, I think, has always been about flavor. But now the variety of flavors that I have in my seeds, I think that's opened up a much wider area now. So yeah.
Super excited to hear that you're doing some breeding outdoors. Is that true today? Do you concentrate more on breeding outdoors, or is it like a 50-50? You have some indoors, some outdoor?
Yeah, both really. But I try and grow all my plants indoors and out and test everything indoors and out. Sometimes it's not always the option to test both in and out, depending on the time of year. But yeah, growing all my mother plants have been grown indoors and outdoors, and all been tested. So I know what each plant can do in different situations. It's just, I think it's a good thing to do, especially from a breeding point of view. Because when you're growing plants indoors all the time, you really don't get to see the true representation of the plant. When you grow all your plants outdoors, under the sun, you really get to see them to their full potential as well.
So have you bred, I'm curious to know this, have you bred the same strain both indoors and outdoors? And have you noticed a difference, from that stock when popped?
Yeah, no real difference. But then I'm using the same mothers and fathers. But then if I start doing a selection outdoors, that could change things if I did compare to a selection indoors. But yeah, on the actual seed stock, do I notice anything different?
Not necessarily in the stock, but the offspring. So say you take the seeds that were produced outdoor and the seeds that were produced indoor, and you pop 50 and 50 or whatever. Have you seen a difference from the ones that were popped? Maybe different phenols that are coming from outdoor produced beans versus the ones that were produced indoors?
No. I'm not seeing any genetic variation from outdoors compared to indoor seeds produced. Because we've got quite a similar environment in and out here. That's what I try and keep it at anyway. So the temperatures outside, maybe it gets a little bit warmer outside when we hit those hot spots. But then we have good airflow outside. So the plants, they still even enjoy those hot days. I think some of my selections would be for plants that can tolerate heat a little bit more as well. That's one thing I think I was discussing with one of my friends from the UK. Whereas maybe when I was in the UK, I would have selected plants that could handle those cold spells a little bit more.
You know, that's another reason too why I'm hoping that they stay breeding outdoors. You know, I honestly think that with a lot of breeding, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I honestly think if we keep breeding indoors, we're gonna kind of weaken the plant for, you know, outdoor runs myself. Any thoughts on that? That's why I was so excited to hear that you're actually producing, you know, some strains outdoors.
100%, yeah. So what people have started to do is take a lot of hybrid seeds over to Morocco because they want to grow feminized seeds over there. But since they've done this, so they had plants probably came from places like Lebanon, Pakistan, and that originally, and they grew them in Morocco. And then these plants acclimatized to the surroundings. The farmers selected those plants over time, and they had harvests of hashish, and they never got mold. Yeah, they never had mildew, nothing. Once they started to grow the hybrid seeds that were grown indoors, made indoors, maybe even made outdoors as well, but hybrid seeds in general, innit? But a lot of them made indoors, grown out in Morocco, everything just started getting covered in powdery mildew, like crazy amounts of powdery mildew. So my friends were telling me, like, the farmers over there thought it was like more resin on the plants to start off with. So that's like they didn't have the education about powdery mildew because it was never affected their cannabis plants before. But since they started growing the hybrid indoor seeds outside, things were getting destroyed by powdery mildew, molds probably, and I imagine bugs as well. That would be another thing that they wouldn't have built a resilience to, just because indoors is a much cleaner environment, so you don't have the opportunity to do those tests.
So Intro Centennial in chat was wanting to know about seed size from indoor to outdoor. You want to speak on that?
Seed size?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, I think outdoors you can get a fatter seed. But if your plants are super nice and healthy indoors, I can get just as big a seeds indoors as well. So it all depends on the genetics. I have certain genetics that produce fatter seeds in general compared to other ones. And it's same outside. When you grow them outside, the same difference is seen outside. Some plants will make fatter seeds than other seeds, but generally the seeds produced outdoors are always much nicer looking, fatter, just in general. Yeah.
So let's back up to, you know, beginning workings of trichomes. So as you go, you're going through. What was number 3? What was the third? What was the third one on that? Or the third one?
What that I produced. So it was I used a Pynamite Shiva male, and I crossed that to a few different things. Subcool would let us use his Jack's Cleaner. So we'd been growing his Jack's Cleaner for a bit. So I pollinated that with the Pynamite Shiva. I pollinated the Agent Orange, the cheese, UK cheese, which was a clone that was going around at the time. What else was there? My Mantis. Oh, I can't even remember right off the top of my head, but there was a few. I pollinated a lot of my mother's because I only wanted to pollinate a small amount of the crop, but I over pollinated everything and made far too many seeds, more than I wanted, because I wanted the crop for more for flour to smoke. But those seeds then, that was like one batch of seeds that I started testing. And from them, I released the ones that I thought were the best. But it was only meant to be a small batch. So that was my, I'd say, third breeding project. And then later on, I used a male from DNA. They given me some seeds, which were Sour Diesel crossed with LA Confidential. And I'd selected a male from them and pollinated a couple, 2 or 3 things, which made, what were the ones that I did? The Crowberry, which was a very dark sort of purple strain, but had a very, very like sweet sort of taste. I can't remember the cross exactly now off the top of my head, but I think it was a Urkel Blackberry or something like this. But yeah, beautiful line. I crossed that with the DNA male. I also did, what else was it? That with the Mantis. And then I also did the Mantis male on a few things. So I was working I worked through quite a few different things after that first one and the second one. And then once I made those seeds, it was just more about testing those seeds out and seeing which ones I preferred. And the same again, every time, whichever were the best seeds, I'd release those seeds as a batch. And then I also did my Mantis male on a lot of things. And that was like the Bubba Mantis, and I worked that one, made an F2 line. What else? Oh, so many different things. I'd have to go back and have a look. It was so long ago. We're talking like 15 years ago. Yeah?
Cheers to that. And you know, I love the fact that some of the beginning works had some of the Jack's cleaner in there. In my opinion, one of the strongest strains TGA put forth. You know, he always talks about Vortex being one of the strongest, but man, that one in particular seemed not to have a ceiling to it. Jack's cleaner, you could just smoke and get high, smoke, and just smoke yourself stupid, basically. So I'm glad to hear, and he was a good friend of mine, so I'm glad to hear that some of the beginnings were kind of took off with that as a base. So cheers to that, my friend. What are your thoughts? I mean, what were some of the things you enjoyed about that one?
No, Jack's Cleaner was special. It was like I preferred the Jack the Ripper, to be honest. That we had a Jack the Ripper that we called the Limango Fino. It was like lemon, mangoey, but it had this like weird hazy notes to it. What did one of my mates say it was like? I forgot now, but anyway, so the Jack's Cleaner, that was super strong, great plant to grow, but the Jack the Ripper for me was a special one, like definitely. Vortex, you said I got to grow that one out as well. The hash from it was absolutely amazing. It was like it came out like caramel almost. That was the color. So yeah, that was a special one. I was always impressed with so cool stuff at the beginning, like just the different range of terpenes that you would get from each plant. Just so unique compared to everything else at the time.
Yeah, it's one of those things, man. I wish he would have got some more of the appreciation. Not that I'm not saying that you never gave none, but you know what I mean. But man, it seems like a lot of it did, like anything else. After somebody passes, we kind of realize the effort that was put forth by a good individual there, and again, I'm super glad that he had some influence in Trichome Jungle, way back in the day. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
I love hearing the stories, you know what I mean? Because there was a lot of drama towards, the midway or whatever. But man, I think people really do forget, the influence he had in cannabis. And moreover, sir, I don't want people to forget. You know what I mean? I don't want people to forget the influence he had on a lot of us. Because right now, that's another thing. Right now, there's so many new growers entering the whole cannabis community in general. So, as we move forward, I don't want to forget a lot of the greats that helped get us here. So I'm super stoked that we were able to give a nod.
Yeah. Nah, he was doing a lot with Breed back at the time. He even came over to the UK. We got to meet him and stuff like that. So he came over to the UK, and I think I met him in Amsterdam as well at the Cannabis Cup. So yeah, and he'd always have time for you online. Do you know what I mean? If you ever ask questions about breeding or anything like that. So yeah, cool guy. That's it.
So more about Trichome Jungle. So what would you say was the first one to kind of pop off? What was one of the first ones to really take hold for you?
Mandarina. I think that's like probably one of my flagship strains. It's quite well known in Spain and Europe and that. So Mandarina Kush became quite popular. Later on, the orange soda, that one was another one that became very popular. And Jungle Juice. The Jungle Juice was a sour diesel cross and crossed with my Jungle Kush male. And then the orange soda was the same sour diesel crossed with my Mandarina. Both sour diesel reversed, so to make like a feminized line. But before that, I'd always done regular seeds. I'd never really messed around with feminized. So that was like my first feminized release in seed form. But before that, I'd always been regular seeds. But Mandarina is definitely like a unique one. That was what I won my first cup with as well. So I entered the cup in Spain with the Mandarina hash and the Mandarina flower, and won first place for both. So I think that helped get the strain noticed a little bit in Spain to start off with. And anyone that makes hash with it, it got quite popular in Morocco. They started making hash with it in Morocco as well. So there was like batches of Moroccan hash coming over of Mandarina Kush, orange soda, and they have like a category in some of the cups, which will be like a old school hash or like import hash type section, and Mandarina Kush and gingerbread, which is another Mandarina cross, always placed in the cups. And the orange soda did well at one of the cannabis cups that got second place as well. So that was first place and second place with them. But it's just because those Mandarina terpenes really come through in the hash. And the plants, I think, grown out in Morocco, again, genetically, I think they've just been able to handle a little bit of the stress. They don't dry it in the best way. So, they're very rough with the way they do things. At one point, they would dry the plants on rooftops, on hot roofs. in the sun. So, and then make hash out of it. So it's been changed. They do actually put it into like barns now in the dark, and dry it in a slower manner. But I think just the Mandarina just puts up with a lot of the stress, and the terpenes really still come through in the hash. So when you get the hash and you break it up, you can still, it just smells of like you're cutting up oranges almost.
Man, I can imagine that roof dried bud produced just an erotic hash. I can imagine that shit just put you out. I can see that being converted very quickly with the CBN there, just being super potent as far as pouts like that. I don't know.
Yeah,
It's amazing how as we learn, tech changes. Is you think sometimes tech changes for a good way? Sometimes I think it's not necessarily always for a good
way. Yeah, but definitely the Mandarina is something that I'm going to be bringing back at some point, because I haven't had seeds available of the Mandarina for quite some time. I've got some like Mandarina crosses, so I've got the Mandarina crossed with the lilt. That's one line that's got the Mandarina in it, and the Mandarina with the soulmate, which was the tropical cocktail. So but I've not had any pure Mandarina seeds available for some time, so I think I'm probably going to work that line up eventually again. But at the moment I'm just working on a new cherry spice line. That's another line that I just haven't had available for some, like, it's got to be a couple of years now, and people are always asking about it. So I'm working that line to bring back a new cherry spice at the moment. Also working on a new lilt line, a back cross lilt. And then once those two are done, they're going to be the next new releases. I'm just testing out some new things at the moment. So I made the soulmate from Bodhi. I selected a male and a female. The male was used to make the Sacred Selections, which is a list of like 9 strains. And what I've done now is used the female soulmate and reversed it to make the feminized seeds. So I'm just testing them out at the moment, just to see what they all come out like. So I've done 13 new crosses, but from those 13, whichever are the best will be the ones that I eventually release. So yeah, just testing them at the moment, and then eventually a little bit of stress testing, make sure that none of them herm too easy, and whichever ones can put up with the stress testing will be the ones that I'll release.
I appreciate the fact that you're actually doing a lot of testing, man. There's so many people just throwing out F1s out there, untested F1s, that it's very discouraging. I think it's good to know there's still a lot of quality breeders out there doing some testing before they draw out their genetics.
Yeah, that's it. Do you know what? I'm always stuck with space, but a lot of the breeders in America, I'm seeing that got huge amounts of space for them just to pop a few seeds and do a test. It takes no time. You just got to make sure after you've made your seeds, 3 months of testing is what you really need to do minimum, isn't it? I think like back in the day, we spent a little bit more time on things as well. We'd take a year before we'd even release something. Everything seems to have sped up a little bit at the moment. So yeah.
So how many strains would you say you put forth so far? How many lines have you worked?
Ooh, how many things I've actually made? hundreds. Yeah, I can't even. Yeah, it's got to be hundreds easier. But like how many things I've actually released, I'm going to say probably about 60 lines I've probably released to the public.
So the male part of the breeding is very important, underestimated or not talked about as much. How important do you feel the male is to breeding, and what is your selection process like for your breeding, for your males?
Yeah, like it depends what you're going for in your breeding project. So I'd say like a male that's not so dominant in a cross works quite well. That's probably like very similar to the lilt male that I've just used now and my jungle kush male that I used in the past, where they're not so dominant in the cross, but the cross comes out very similar to the mother plant more than anything. The male probably adds a little bit of its maybe growth pattern and resin, but the actual smell, taste, and main thing about the female plant that it's been crossed with is what the offspring come out like. So it'd be like a not dominant, a male that's not dominant in the cross. Whereas other males, you might be like, you might want that male to be dominant in the cross to add something to the female. Or it all depends on what you're actually breeding for, I suppose.
So do you flower out your males? I mean, how long of a process is it for you to find the male? I mean, do you actually flower one out, flower them out and then pick, or do you just have that gut feeling, just from structure and years of experience? That's my guy.
Yeah, like see, my main thing about selecting a male is I've got to have grown at least a set amount of numbers of the female plants from that same generation. So once I've been able to see what the females are like, if there's a good, it's a stable line and all the females are coming out, it's like very similar to each other, then I know that male is going to be much like the females. So that's one of the main things, I'd say. Yeah.
Nice. So basically, because I'm fixing to throw another strain together. It's been a minute, but in my strain, my male process, so I should be looking for something that has good structure. I mean, the best structure possible out of whatever males that I see.
Like,
and how am I gonna actually, as far as trichome production, can I see that in veg, or will I have to flower him out?
No,
you flower him out to see that as well.
Yeah, you need to flower out the male fully to get where it's producing the resin. That comes much later, I find. But what I'm noticing, like those males with more resin are much more dominant in the cross. So it all depends again what you want to select for. But flowering out your males fully is a must. I'm just doing a selection at the moment, but this is for the new cherry spice line, but I already know what I'm looking for, so I've been able to get rid of most males before I flowered them out, just on growth pattern. So I'm selecting for the more shorter indica type males. So any males that's not showing those signs are getting rid of straight away. So I know what I'm looking for there. But yeah, flowering out your males fully is always good. So the ones that I've selected now getting flowered out fully. And then I've already taken clones off everything. So whichever male is the final selection will be the clone that I use and keep.
You know, Sub always told me that your last male to show would be your most neurotic or most strongest male. Any thoughts on that?
Yes, well, that's what I've actually done for this round. So this male that I've just selected is the last male to show its sign, yeah, and last drop in pollen as well, yeah. But it was the #1 plant from the beginning, from seed as well, and it was the shortest plant, and it's a very sort of indica structure. So there's been certain reasons why I picked that male. The earlier pollen, I think droppers would have been bad, but with the genetics that we're using nowadays, I don't think that's the case so much. Yeah? I think in a field back in the day of landrace type ones, if you were using those early dropping ones, yeah, I think no, they wouldn't have been the plants. But I think with the plants that we're working with nowadays, it's not necessarily the case. But it's something that I do with a lot of my selections in the past and present.
You know, I'm a little bit curious on the other side of things. If say you were looking for a female, if your notes are that tight, I've heard a lot lately as far as like seeds popping. That first one to pop, you know, would be the most suited for that environment. Any thoughts on that? And if you know that be the case, you know, would that be something in your notes that you may lean on later on as a good phenotype? And you know, with that being said, too, a lot of ones I've grown out have been some of that misfits. The last to pop, you know, the one I had to baby a minute, but it turned out to be second round. She snapped out of it, and, you know, to be killer. Do you ever coach any of those along? I guess so. Is there any thought to, you know, first and last to be pop?
Yeah, like I'm taking notes from the very beginning. So once I start the seeds, I'll start taking notes. Which plants pop first goes down, and they tend to be the most vigorous plants as well. So yeah, they tend to be the plants that I do sometimes mark with a little X. I'll just put a little X next to their tag, just knowing that those are the ones that I selected right at the beginning at the seeding stage. And at the end of the selection, there's a high percentage of the ones that I've marked with X from the beginning tend to be in the final selection. So yeah, those vigorous first popping females tend to be good breeding plants. Yeah.
So what are some of your personal favorites as traits? I know it's hard to match the masses, but what are some of the traits that you enjoy about cannabis? There's some in particular terp profiles. Sounds like some gas in there, you know, since you're a fan of the sour D. I'm sure there's some fuel there.
Yeah, terpenes are definitely up there with my main part of my selection. But like growth pattern and things like this do come into it. Like if you walk into the room and there's like certain plants that I look at, I'm like, okay, that plant there looks really nice. Do you know what I mean? A certain leaf structure, I do select for that as well. So like the Rian, that one it just has a certain look to it. It's almost like a much taller indica, but it has like a really fat stem on it, and these fat but very pronounced spikes to the leaf. and it just looks a certain way. It stands out in the room. So that was the reason I selected that plant. But the final product is really nice as well, such a strong stone, really nice resin content. But yeah, so growth pattern will come into it. Speed of flowering, that can play a role as well. I try to have plants that don't go over a certain time, but there's a few there that are longer flowering, but those quicker flowering plants are always nicer. Yeah, what else? But yeah, flavor is definitely my main thing. So each one of my mothers tastes and smells quite different. So yeah, that's part of my main breeding.
I'm a little curious too about the time to introduce the male, both inside and outside. Is that the same? Would you introduce the male both at the same time if your females were outdoors? And I guess in that part of the question, are you just letting them grow naturally out there and see each other, or are you dragging a male out there at a certain time and let the process start like that?
Yeah, no, if I do a cross outside, I'll let the male naturally with the female at the same time, and let her do its pollination. But I'll probably leave in there a much longer period of time. I'll probably leave in there maybe 3 or 4 weeks. Whereas indoors, I wouldn't leave a male in that long. I'd probably do 2 main pollinations with the male. Whereas I'll leave the male in there, maybe give him a tap and shake maybe twice over the period of like 1 to 2 weeks, and then I remove him then indoors. Whereas outdoors, I leave him there much longer.
And I guess that's the same question applies for indoors. Are you introducing the male at the same time, or are you throwing him in a couple weeks later?
That all depends on genetics again. The timing to get that right. But yeah, like the male can go in pretty much the same time as the females indoors as well. Maybe put him in a week after. But yeah, it all depends again how long when your male starts to drop. So you don't want him dropping too early. If he's an early dropping male, then maybe put the females in before. So it's a little balance there. That's it.
So out of all the strains that you've worked with through the years, which are some of the ones that are stood out, and is there any other ones that you wish you had worked with today?
Yeah, the something that I missed from the past is definitely the crowberry. I missed that plant. That was a really nice plant. What else? Yeah, no. But then from the new lines, I think I really like the Shiva Stash. That's one of my favorite lines. I'm just working that a little bit more at the moment to make some new crosses. Yeah.
So how I'm looking at some of the new stock there. That pineapple, how pineapple is that pineapple? I'm curious. I grew out that Pineapple Express. It seems like 10 years ago now, I want to say. And that one came and went all too quick, but it was a favorite while it was here. So how's the pineapple that you got over there?
Yeah, what I'll have to do, I'll send you some seeds of the pineapple gummy, and then you could tell me what you think. But what it's definitely the most tropical smelling and tasting plant I've ever come across. It's like a mix of pineapple and passion fruit, tropical juice. So it has that fruit, sugary, passion fruit, tropical side to it, but it's overpowering with pineapple. Yeah. We used to have these pineapple sweets, like pineapple cubes. And it's like that basically. It's like a strong pineapple tropical juice. Like sometimes you get like mixed tropical juice in big like containers. It just reminds me of that when you open it. Hey there, you back?
I am. Thank you for bearing with me here. A little technical difficulty. I knew I couldn't get through an amazing episode. I appreciate you being patient, my friend. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah, all good.
Good. So, try to remember, got a little squirreled in the drop there. Oh, we're talking about that amazing pineapple there. So how big of a key factor is plant structure when you're looking for your females there or picking out strains?
Yeah, again, it all depends like on the line, but like the pineapple gummy and things like that, and the lilt and things, those ones have a tight, more sativa type structure. Whereas I'll say the cherry spice is much more on that indica, what people typically know as indica, fat leaf type with a much more cookie type structure to the nugs. So it all depends on which lines. But bag appeal, they tend to all have good bag appeal. If people look on my page on Instagram, you get to see a good representation of all my different lines, and you can see the different bud structures between them. So yeah, but that plays a big role in selecting. Final selection comes down to this. So when you've got the nugs and you're trying them all and smoking them all, and which ones stand out when you look at them, so you try and find one that has it both. The only plant that I have that I say wouldn't stand out compared to other things is the sour neo. It's much more like sativa-y. The bud structure is not super solid at all, but the flavor is like some of the best stuff that I have here. It's definitely one that I always go back to.
So with that being said, I can't help but wonder, how big of a flower or how big of a factor is flower time in your breeding as far as are you keeping that in mind for like the end game as far as what people are gonna want? Because that's a funny thing. I don't think people are patient enough in flowering time. There's some great strains out there that you can get in 50, 56, 65 days. But man, some of the fire strains are really the longer flowering time strains. So how do juggle that and keep everybody happy?
Yeah, I'm gonna say like most of my older lines and that were always like a little bit longer flower, more towards like 10, 11 weeks. Some of the sour crosses that I did, they were around that sort of length of time. As I've come to use the lilt, that's sped up a little things. The Mandarina lines were a little bit longer. The Jungle Kush lines weren't too bad. They all came out like around 9-10 week mark. But some of the lilt lines, I've got some of them to come out really quick. So the lilt crossed with the Skittles came out super, super fast, which is the opal fruits. And the Kaifi, which I crossed with the lilt, and I also crossed the Kaifi with the Soulmate. The Soulmate Kaifi was Raspberry Soul, and the Lilt's Kaifi was the Pineapple Incense. And both of them came out super fast, super quick. They're like done in like 7 weeks, 8 weeks max. So they've come out really nice. But then a lot of the other ones are more around like the 9-10 week mark. I think some of the tropical rose went to like 11 weeks. One of my friends did one. I think that was about 85 days in the end, something like this, 90 days. Yeah. But the new lines I'm working with now, which will be the more indica type lines that I'm going to be releasing, those ones I'm going to be selecting totally for all the fast flowering plants. So those new lines will be super short, super quick flowering, which will be a little bit different to all my other ones, which I'd say I'm more on the sativa hybrid side of things.
How do you suggest or how do you like to see your flowers, your strains harvested? Would you tell people that are growing your strains to harvest closer to the clear cloudy or cloudy amber? Or in my opinion, I find most of my cannabis, I like to let it go the distance. I like that final week, a little bit more amber to get that final swell out of it. I don't think people are patient enough to get that natural swell density from the plant that comes a little bit later. So how do you suggest, they harvest?
I like, me personally, I tell them like depending on what they want from the bud, what type of high they want. Do they want to get as much weight from it as possible? I find the longer you push the plant out, you can sometimes lose that terpene profile where it gives it a little bit more of a sweet taste, and it becomes a little bit more hashy. So it depends what you're picking for. But I like to have it where everything starts to go nice and milky, the trichomes. And as soon as I start to see a few amber ones, that plant's coming down. Whereas if someone doesn't mind losing a little bit of the flavor, but gets a little bit more strong high from it and a little bit more weight, we'll say, push it out a little bit longer, let a few more amber heads in there, and then harvest it.
Good advice. Good advice. What is your in particular preference there?
Yeah, I pick as soon as I see those ambers, it's coming down peak for me. So I retain that really nice sweetness from the terpenes, and nothing starts to degrade at all.
So
Yeah, that's my way. I like to chop the plants and pretty much hang them as full plants, take off maybe a few of the fan leaves, do a really slow dry. Yeah, that's how I do it.
so as I'm start speaking with you here, I can't help but think about and we're talking about perfect time to pick for peak perfect or peak flavor, and now you throw in the thought of cure on top of that. Do you lose? Is that something that seems a funny juggle there? Do you pick early and then try to change that flavor, or increase it through a long-term curing, or as we're talking here, is the peak flavor, you know, cloudy with a little bit of amber and then smoked as fresh as you can get it for peak flavor, or is that peak flavor coming out in a cure? And then if that's the case, are you
Yeah, I think
closer to the end cure if you just let it go? I don't know.
I think as long as you keep your temperatures really cool while you're drying, it will reduce that degrade. So it won't degrade too much, if you know what I mean. So we were saying about, the longer you leave it up, the THC starts to degrade. So you're saying the longer you dry it, it can degrade as well. But I'm going to say if you keep those temperatures low, then it can be okay. And I find anyway, especially growing organic and that, I think a lot of those flavors come out much later. Yeah, after it's had a good dry and been put in the jar and left to cure for a little bit, that's when everything comes around. It really tastes amazing, and that's what I find with the organic. Whereas in cocoa and more of a hydro type things, those things I think taste better at the beginning and can lose it quite quickly. Whereas organic, I find it really retains it, and as it cures, it gets almost better.
I appreciate that perspective. I've never even considered that, to be honest with you, but I could see that. I could really, now that you kind of shine a little light on it, I can see that. I can see that.
No, like once I've had my mothers for some time, so I've got to see them in cocoa and organics and stuff like this. And always, every time I try the organic flour, it just cures so nice, and it doesn't lose its sweetness and the gooiness of the THC. Whereas I find a lot of the mineral stuff, after a set amount of time, it goes quite bland.
So, do you want to walk me through your harvesting process there, if you would?
Yeah, I literally chop the plants at the base and hang those plants up and just take off the main big fan leaves, let that dry for around 2 weeks, 10 days to 2 weeks, and then I take it off all the branches, and I'll leave it for maybe like another few more days. Then it'll go into a jar. Once it's been left in the jar for 24 hours, I'll open up the jar and let any moisture that's come from the center of the buds back out. Let that evaporate out of the jar with the lid off, in a room with a dehumidifier, so it's keeping that humidity down, and then close that jar off and keep it in a super cool place, like a cool cupboard or a refrigerator somewhere dark, out of the light. That's the best way you can store your flour.
Well, I want to pick your thoughts. I see a question in chat. I'll get to it. I'll get to it. After. But I've got a. I'm curious to the whole plant dry thing there. I've got I've got a few thoughts on it. So, what do you think the benefits are actually about the whole, cut it at the base and hang? Uh, what are the benefits of that versus, me taking the plant, wet trimming it up, and like hanging it, in branch, still on branches, but
Nothing,
hanging it
nothing.
dry
I'm,
like that.
I don't think there's going to be a huge amount of difference. Yeah, it's just a particular way that I do it. I used to do it exactly how you just said it there, and some of my friends still do it that way. They just can't be bothered. They're like, dry trim, no way. It's much easier just to do a fresh trim and hang it up in little branches on the lines. And I don't think there's going to be much difference. It's just a particular way that I do it. I think if we actually got a bud from the two plants, same clones, and one with fresh trim and hang it, and the other we don't, I think the buds at the end, if you tested them, would be exactly the same.
I would think that to be true, to be honest with you. But then again, as I'm learning more and more about, basically plant science, I question things a little bit like that as well. And the drying process all the way, I honestly prefer an herb dryer. My herbs now machine I use. I'm not, this isn't a commercial for that. We're talking drying. And I like that process. I think uh, I've talked to some people about this as well. I almost think, and it sounds counterproductive to what we've always been taught, but if the drying environment's right, I almost think it saves a lot of terps to dry them because they wear off. They're as more they're exposed to air, the more we're losing it. So it just kind of makes sense if we could dry it faster and put it in a jar, the more we could save the turds, to be honest with you. So but that's not here nor there. I'm kind of wondering the other way because I've always heard, that plant hang, chop it upside down. It's two reasons for that. And one I can see, leaving fan leaves on versus leaving them, taking them off. Uh, Environmental control. You know what I mean? You're actually in a over dry environment, leaving on some of them leaves for moisture purposes. But I think it gets a little deeper than that, to be honest with you. I think it's not just the leaves coming down, surrounding the buds and holding the terpenes in. I think it's more of a battery type effect. Like when the plant's growing, those leaves store nutrients and water. So I think that plays a role actually in the hang dry process versus the wet trim. I think there's a little bit of it will be a little bit of difference there because just like when you cut a rose, you put it in a vase, it's still going for a few days as long as it's getting that water and nutrients. It's still kicking, it's still trying. And I think when we wet trim and cut everything off it, she's dying and going through that dry process way quicker to where I think when we cut it at the base and just let it, everything fold over on her, there's more water, nutrients, and she's kicking for a little bit longer, maybe even going through a slightly different chemical process towards the end, maybe putting out some more terps or something.
Yeah, you could even say that a wet trim compared to a dry trim, when you dry trimming, much more resin will fall off the plant, no?
Yeah.
When you're wet trimming, the trichomes are at a stage where the heads aren't going to fall off those trichomes very easy. Whereas once it's dry, those trichome heads become a little bit more brittle, and can break off and fall off much more easy. So some of my friends don't like to dry trim. They reckon they lose more trichomes.
I can see that. I can see that. I don't like the dry trim. I'm not a fan of the dry trim. And I think that's to do with my hash to agree reasons. I've always used my trim for my bubble, and I've always found my bubble to be better if I wet trimmed.
Yeah. Do you know what I do though? I have like a big screen. So I trim over the screen. So at the end, once I remove the screen, I have a nice amount of sieved hash. And then same with like if I do a seed harvest, every plant will be I collect the seeds over a screen again, and then each one of my plants will be sieved, and I can see the resin off each plant. So I think that's another part of my selection as well. See which plants produce nicest resin.
With a name like Trichome Jungle, I would think that's part of the.
That's it. That's how it's the name sort of did come about through that type of thing, innit? So I was thinking glandular trichome seeds, and then it just Trichome Jungle seeds. So yeah, I stuck with that name in the end, but it was to do with strains that would be good for making hash. So all those more alcohol soluble terpenes, those ones when you make the bubble, you don't lose anything in the water, basically.
So has flower production or the demand for flower over there changed that a little bit? Because like you said, it humble beginnings for hash, and we kind of bred strains for hash in the beginning, but has it changed in at all any as more and more flowers being sold over there? Has
Yeah, I think if you
changed a bit?
Yeah, I think if you breed strains for good extract and hash, they tend to make good strains for smoking in flower. It's not always the case. Some things do smoke better in flower, but I think in general, you're selecting for good terpenes that come through well in hashish. So yeah, I think
I'm sure I'm gonna, because there is a difference in my opinion. I'm sure it might make a few people mad with this statement, but like
there's some things that smoke much better in flower compared to extracture.
The purples in general, in my opinion, it's a beautiful flower. Smells good, doesn't make great extracts at all, and in my opinion, isn't the strongest. But it doesn't have beautiful bag appeal. Is it? You know what I mean. So in that case, breeding for just flower and beauty of the flower is a key factor, and I think that's true for a lot, man. So are some of the more beautiful flowers, in your opinion, also great extracts, or is it just straight up trichome production that makes the better hash?
No, some of the things that just don't have super trichome sometimes, but have a very unique terpene, will make some amazing hash. So it all depends. But again, all depends on genetics.
So I guess has that ever just coming straight out of into play? Sometimes the prettiest flowers aren't necessarily the strongest, but have you had some that's made the menu because it was just a drop dead gorgeous flower?
The sour neo, that made it because it was just a special flavor, but for the look of it, it didn't make it. But then the Kaifi had a really special look to it, but some of the females were not the strongest on flavor. So I picked the best one, the one that had the best flavor. But the look of it was absolutely amazing. So yeah, but the sour Neo, the total opposite. It had a amazing flavor, but just didn't look very good.
That was my next question there. Is there ever been some that made the menu that were obviously, yeah, I know this looks like lettuce, but you gotta have this. Trust me, you you gotta have this type thing that's made the menu.
Yeah, the sour Neo, and that like that's available. Like there's a few clubs. So in Spain, you have social clubs that you can go to and buy flour, smoke it in the club. So there's places in Tenerife, and they're growing out the sour Neo, my original one. And they all love it. They absolutely love it. But even though it just doesn't have that look, people still come back and buy it just for the pure flavor and high. It's just so strong and so full of flavor. It's just the perfect plant almost, yeah. If it had the looks, then it would be the perfect plant.
Again, I can't help but wonder, do you ever just blend, you know what I mean, in like a cannabis crowd and be past some of your flower and be like, yeah, you gotta try this, and be like, yeah, I've read that. You know what I mean? Just see somebody just giving your shit big ups, and yeah, that's me.
Yeah. The Spanibus in Spain is always a good event, but we've missed out on it for 2 years now because of the whole lockdown and coronavirus and whatever other bullshit that's going on. So yeah, no Spanibus, but I definitely advise to check that out. It's a really, really good event. It's absolutely huge.
At this point, I would think it's one of the biggest events in cannabis, isn't it? I would think. I
In
think
Europe,
so. I mean, I've never been, but I wanna.
yeah, in Europe, it's probably the biggest in Europe. And it's just the fact that you've got so many clubs in such a small area in Barcelona that you have so many different little events going on after the Spanibus as well. What's one of the more bigger events in USA?
I want to say Emerald Cup stands out for me, because it's not as commercial. Of course, you have High Times did lead the way for a while, but as of late, man, because of their corporate stance and the way they're throwing it, I lost a lot of respect for a lot of the cups. The value of the cup itself, I guess, versus the event itself. I'd still go to their event reluctantly. I would think if there was another one going, I would probably go to the more local event. But if they were the the only event going, I would go just because I love the community and I love hanging out with the community flat out. But I've lost a lot of respect for High Times in general, the way they take the directions. So,
Yeah, at one point, the High Times was a good event. It's still a good event because everybody goes to it. It is a good meeting point to see everybody that you haven't seen for so long. I used to go to like the High Times in Amsterdam, but it lost its how it was at the beginning. It became more of just a money making event, but it was still a good event to go to see everybody and meet up once a year.
And that's the way it's been around here the last few years. I don't know why that's changed, to be honest with you. But man, the last few years, it could be just COVID. You know what I mean? Times that's just what's been available, and you're grateful for what's available. But it seems like to me, man, the smaller, more local events have been the better time, more laid back. You know, you don't feel this rush. To me, you know, I don't need somebody, you know, rushing out, fucking wearing next to nothing. Try my brand, have you tried this? That doesn't make the event for me. I mean, to being able to sit down with some friends and actually pull up some lawn and smoke some cannabis, wander around and talk to some vendors and try their product right then and there. Go sit back down on the blanket with some friends. Hey, just go try back that stuff back there. That's more fun to me than,
Yeah.
you know, not even being able to talk to the friends I'm bumping into because they've got that, you know, that's it's fun, but it's not fun. You know what I'm saying? So the local events, the smaller guy events, have been a lot more fun for me. So I hope to see more of those this year. To be honest with
Yeah. I'm looking forward to the next event in Spain. It's been so long now. I haven't seen, like, you know, the normal people that you get to see every year. It's been, yeah, it's been the last one I went to, but it got cancelled straight away. And then this year, nothing this year. So yeah, missed out on 2 years now. I've heard there's going to be a good event in the UK, this Product Earth. So I might try and go back for that. But it will depend, see how things go.
I'd say this. So here's one thing I am grateful for on the larger events, and that is the opportunity to meet great folks like yourself. You know, you don't get as much of that at the smaller events. You get to meet some local breeders, but there's only so many, you know, per area that come to them events. To where high times you get to see a lot more breeders, and that's actually when I like to buy. If I'm in out of pocket for some seeds, a lot of times it's at the events. I hate to say that because I like the one-on-one, hopefully, with the breeder, the team. Usually it's the team. You know what I mean? A lot of people that know what's going on are passionate about what they're doing. Uh, and that's what I like to see. You know, I go from booth to booth, and, you know, I don't necessarily make my choices unless something stands out right away. I kind of step back and go, okay, I talked to these. That dude right back there was like super stoked about this. You know what I mean? I could see the fire, so I think I'm gonna go back and pick that up. To where you can't get that in any other place. You don't get that from your, you know, online purchases. There's a lot of guys out there, great people like yourselves, that do take time to answer DMs and all that, but it's not the same as, you know, that one-on-one. You know, it's that human interaction that we're talking about. You know, that there's something to be said about that in the sales as well. So that's where I if I buy seeds, that's usually when I buy seeds. It's the one-on-one for that reason.
Yeah.
So
That's what I noticed with a lot of the high times. People would come there to Amsterdam just to get their seeds.
is that where you send a lot of more, sell a lot of more of your product is the events, or do you find a lot of your stuff is more online, word of mouth?
Yeah, no, I don't really tend to do events. The Spanibus, I've shared a booth with someone where I've just jumped on with them. But normally I don't do the events. I just go there just so I can just chill out and meet people and have a little bit more of a relaxed time.
Yeah.
I find events can be too much sometimes. You don't even get time to talk to people just because there's so many people there.
Yes, that is very true. Very true. I've done a few myself. I actually was one of Sub's reps of Michigan rep for a while here. And yeah, the events can be very strenuous. You'd be lucky to leave your booth for any reason, much less have a good conversation throughout the day. by the time it's all said and done, you usually don't want to have a conversation because you're whooped. Just flat out whooped. Yeah. But so what's some of the stuff you're most excited about currently? You know, I see a lot of good stuff on your menu, but what's some of your shining stars right now, you'd say? I know one person in American ones, like Ed told me one time, that's almost like asking a parent which one's your favorite kid. But
Yeah,
unfortunately, there's something.
But no,
there's
like
always something.
From the new lines, I'm liking the pineapple gummy. That's really, really, really nice. And then also the tropical cherry, very similar to like a cherry spice type thing. That one's really nice. I think what else? Yeah, the sour fusion from the Sacred Selection. Really enjoyed that one. What else from the new things? I'm looking forward to seeing the results from all these new feminized. So looking forward to that, and seeing which ones are going to come out the best from those lines.
Man, that tropical rose is beautiful. Man, that's
Yeah.
pretty. Talk about pretty flowers. That's a pretty flower.
Nah, tropical rose is a really nice one as well. There's some special plants to be found in those seeds. I only released a small amount of them as well, but one of my friends just grew them out, and yeah, everyone was really special. But there's a couple that stood out from the crowd. But yeah, there's a couple of pictures on my page. There's one there. I think you must have just looked at it, like purpley sort of plant. Yeah, that one there. That actually tastes absolutely amazing. Yeah.
They're all beautiful strains, man. There's another pic of the tropical rose right there. That is a pretty girl. It's just frosty all the way out the fucking. I wish I could share this shit. Usually I'm on my computer and I could share, but I'm on my freaking phone at the moment because of the technical difficulties. Man, that's a beautiful flower, brother. Wow. Nice job on all the strains right on. That lilt's a pretty gal as well.
Oh yeah, there's a clone of it going around the UK at the moment. There's 2 clones, but they're doing the rounds. So there's lots of people growing it out, and lots of nice batch of it available in the UK. So yeah, it's nice to see the UK growing some nice bud and taking it to the next level.
The pineapple. I'm also looking now at the pineapple intense. Ooh, that's another pretty flower right there. I don't think Trichome Jungle would be a perfect breeder name coming from that, man. That thing, I don't think you could fit any more sugar on that pineapple intense. Incent, my bad. That pineapple incense. Oof. Yeah, nice work, brother.
So what have you got growing yourself at the moment?
Oh man, I got a whole mess of things. Some things going in, some things going out. Currently, I've been chasing down the pine terps for a while. I got a few piney things in the garden. Right now, one of the things I'm surprisingly excited about is it was bred out and sent to me by somebody in the community, White Feather Grown, and it's a strain they call the Tiger King, just like the Netflix special there. It's out of the same town, his hometown. They're both out of that town, the breeder and the Tiger King, and it's pretty impressive, man. It's super piney. It just hits me just right when I work with the plant. You know what I mean? I was in there deep leafing. When I went in there, I was kind of in that little pissy mood. I'm not afraid to say it. Not everybody has a perfect day. I was like, I was a little worked up when I went in there, but after just a few minutes, that pine turds hit me, and she took me to the right place right away. So I've got Tiger King going there. I've got 6-shooter by Empire Breeding Co. Citrus Explosion. I've got a few strains from Empire Breeding Co. Or I'm sorry, Med Grower One. His Primal Punch times the Biscotti. I'm not even sure he's named that one yet. So, and a few others. Too many. Yes, I think all in all, I've got about 15 strains floating around here. And Chilumbium is a new one I'm working with for from North Star. That's kind of one of the main reasons I was picking your brain a little bit about the breeding. There is there was a gentleman that I met through the community, through this adventure of the show here, DOA, who was a very cool gentleman. You know, he's one that came and unfortunately passed away this last year. And so we've kind of come up with the idea to do like a dedication strain. So we're kind of growing out a strain. We're going to cross and just kind of pass it out to the community. So I've got that going. And so I was kind of wanting to pick your brains as far as a good male selection there, proper selection. There's a lot of good information, but man, I always love the breeder insight. You know what I mean? As far as male selection, and I want to put forth something decent on the first try. And whatever gets put out there will definitely be like an F1. Don't have. The idea was to actually kind of work it out further as the show goes. Everybody kind of pick something, maybe a female selection, send it back, something like that. But that was the thought. So that's going to be North Star's Chilumbium times TGA or the Dank Subcool's Jack Skeleton. So we're going to cross those two together, make some seeds and pass those out. I've got the Chilumbium and Smiley's Gardens, who you may not have heard of from GR420 community videos. He's hung out over there a few times. Great folks over there, by the way. If you're not watching their videos, you should be. So he's got one half, I've got one half, and we're growing them out. And male selection has yet to be done. So a little bit of advice from a professional like yourself is always more than welcome. That's kind of some things that's going on here in the garden. So, little talk.
And that's, you say North Star?
Yeah, Joel from North Star Genetics. He worked with Subcool back in the day, produced a lot of stuff with it.
Yeah, I used his banana hooch, which is it's a cross of a couple of gooey breeders things with the banana kush. But I used that in a cross, and that's what makes the pink pineapple. So it's that crossed with the Mandarina, crossed with the lilt.
I was looking at this other one. What's it? Chemtail? Is that what you could possibly call it? Marinana? Fuck that one up. Times the Afghani is with the pink pistols on it. Man, that's another
that's the Mandarina with the Afghan, yeah. The Afghan male. So I selected an Afghan male, and the male passed over pink pistol trait to the females, or the female offspring.
Does that produce a nice pink hash as well?
No, it doesn't come through in the hash. The trichomes aren't purple or pink.
Sure is a pretty flower, though. That's for sure.
Yeah. That line definitely would be a good line to work with. But it's because of the Afghan indoors. I think can be a little bit stress on the plants. They much prefer being grown outdoors under the sun.
Boy, this cherry spice I'm looking at is fucking something quite amazing as well. Is that cherry terps come out in that one as well?
Yeah,
Is
it's
that,
the cherry pie
do the
with Girl
names?
Scout cookie.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, brother.
No, it's
Do the
okay.
names accurately describe? So, like, if I see pineapple and cherry, and some of your strain names, is that what I'm going to expect with some of them terps?
Yeah, that's what I try to do. I try to pick something that is good representation of the plant. So the pineapple gummy, you're gonna get pineapples. The mandarina, it's gonna smell like mandarins and oranges. Do you know what I mean? The cherry spice has got that like cherry edge, but it's got this like more sort of gassy, more gassy OG Kush type of thing with this like cherry thing going on. So yeah, that's one of my favorites to smoke. Yeah.
Yes, a bunch of beautiful pictures of that particular strain. I dig the Buddha vibe on the packaging as well.
Yeah, that's all done by an artist called Mr. Kobo. But he does some amazing artwork. So he does all those designs are his. So yeah, he's got an Instagram page, so definitely worth checking out.
I super dig the crystal seed containers here. How cool is that shit?
Yeah, that's it. I did them like a little sort of limited release, but I did a few different types. I did some clear quartz. I did some amethyst ones, some rose quartz, and then the fluorite ones. I think the fluorite ones came out beautiful.
Oh man, that's fucking cool as fuck, to be honest with you. Hopefully you don't mind the swear. Sometimes I could be a tad vulgar, I guess. But man, I've got a thing for crystals, and I actually have never seen something like that. I think that is some like super cool shit. Especially I feel like so as I think, pheno selection is very particular to the grower in the space. I think a seed selection like this would be the same. I would almost want to like run my hand over those crystals. It's that one. I think the stones have energy just like everything else does, and I think it would be a great vibe to pick something up and feel its energy. I think it just would add to the whole experience, that the growing experience. I'm kind of corny like that, so or hippie, because we've talked a little bit lately about adding crystals to the soils and frequency and all that other good shit. But I think that's a cool tie-in right there. Super cool tie-in. I'd pay extra for something like that just because I think crystals. I dig it. I super dig it. I hope to do it again.
Yeah. Because it was for the sacred selection, and like I was just sat there and I had a piece of quartz, and I just decided, right, I'm gonna drill one end of it, and just started drilling it. And then I was sat there, and there was just like a piece of cork that I had from my normal packaging on the side, and I put the cork in it, and I was just like looking at it, and I was like, that would be perfect for seeds. So the first prototype that I made myself, and then from that I showed someone a design and got a load made up, basically. But yeah, they come out beautiful. I really like the rainbow fluorite. I think they came out the nicest. A little bit longer. but yeah, it's something that someone's going to keep after they take the seeds out, definitely.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's something I hope that we do more of. Super cool. Very memorabilia. A little bit of memorabilia there. I don't know if, I'd almost plant it with the plant or put it right in the pot with the plant, or if I would keep it.
Yeah, you definitely have to get me an Addy, and I'll get you some out sent to you. Definitely.
You don't have to do that, but I would take it. You don't have to do that, but I'd most certainly take it. That's fucking awesome. Man, yeah, you definitely have some amazing work here, man. I highly suggest, if you haven't looked down the page, you need to get over there and check that out. And it's awesome work, man. Awesome work. I'm genuinely impressed. So, I hope that my mods are usually pretty good. Where are your sheets mainly available? Can they hit you up on the Instagram, or where can they find them?
Yeah, they can message me on Instagram for information, but like in USA, I've got seeds here now. My seeds are available there. Also, genetic supply, which is to do with North Star's got his seeds with them as well. So yeah, they're a good company. Who else is there? Cool Beans. They have some of my seeds. Oregon Elite Seeds as well. So that's on the USA side. But UK, I've got another bunch of people in the UK. People like Simply Souvenirs, Attitude Seeds, Manchester Seeds. Yeah, a few others. That's it.
So, what does the current growth setup look like? I mean, we've heard a little bit about the humble beginnings, but what's things looking like nowadays?
Yeah, I'm using a super soil as my main mix, feeding just waters and teas. For lighting, I'm using sunlight LEDs, and I've also just got some Lux Lights LEDs. So I've gone full LED now, and so far so good. I'm really impressed with the results of the LEDs. So yeah, that's my main growing style and lighting is a soil, organic, teas, and LED lighting at the moment. Yeah.
You just kind of hit another segment of good questions there with the LEDs. I mean, so how great of an impact have you seen with the LEDs in the gardens, both as far as seed production and the things you've noticed in your flower? I mean, that's something that I don't get to ask that often, because as a grower, I can grow out strains here, and I run a multiple light system. You see the 4K setup behind me, but out there you can kind of see a glint of the LEDs. I'm sitting in a big U of tent city, if you will, but I definitely notice, flower grown from this side to flower grown from that side, that LED side, I'm almost starting to think is getting to be a little bit superior, a little bit more dense, definitely a bit more greasy. But that's the only things I can see, from my experience. I don't do the breeding, you know what I mean? So have you noticed that difference in your flowers, making that switch?
Well, I this is the first run with them, so I haven't actually tried my own flower with LEDs yet. So this is going to be the first run, but basically, I'm seeing what you just said then, to people saying like more denser, a little bit more terps from them. But the main thing for me is less electricity for the same amount of bud. So I can get the same amount using less electricity, which means also less air conditioner because they run with no heat. So I'm saving quite a lot on electricity, but getting the same results yield-wise.
You know, I like that the electricity thing is a double-edged sword for me. I definitely love the reduction of electricity, heat, all that good stuff. But it's production as well. I see it as, oh, I'm running half as much electricity, which tells me I could honestly, theoretically, run twice as many lights for the same amount I was paying prior. So, do you pull back and go, you know, restart reaping the savings, or do you move forward, you know, step up and, you know, double up, I guess?
Yeah, for me, I can only run a set amount of electricity here.
That's what I'm saying. That's
yeah.
So that's a perfect example. If you were limited by electricity before, and you like say this 4K right here, okay?
Yeah.
And I've noticed this. You know, right here I have 30 amps in this 110. Basically, if it were 110, there would be 30 amps. This is 220, so it's more like 18 amps here. You know what I mean? Now, if I switch this to LED, like, you know, over here, it's LEDs over there. That thing 4 by 810 is now, you know, 6 amps. So theoretically, I mean, if you had space for numbers and all of that, you could, with the same amount of electricity, you could run double the tents with the LEDs with the same amount of electricity. Or do you, like I say, just be happy for the savings that you're putting back into your wallet? So that's what I mean. It's the double-edged sword. Do you reap the savings, or do you go, aha, I've got that extra power, I could step up a little bit?
No, definitely. There's lots of options using them then, isn't there?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And, you know, so I guess that kind of foils my next question, though, because I was going to ask you if you had noticed any difference in the quality of seed being produced under the LED versus the HPS or the older style lights.
Yeah. Well, same again. I've been HPS up until now, so but soon I'll be able to find out if there's a difference in the seeds, the amount of seeds that the plants produce or anything like this. It'd be interesting to see.
I believe you just opened us up for a part 2 later on, because I'm super stoked to hear what your findings will be in like 6 months. You know what I mean? After growing under a little bit of seed production, I'd be more than happy to hear what you will come up with at that point. I'd be super stoked to get you back to hear your findings.
Yeah, no, definitely. And like I said, I'm just testing out all the new feminized things. So once these are finished, the testing, that'll be a new release as well. So I'll be able to can update you on the findings and which of the 14 new strains which will be released.
So I'm curious to know a little bit about that as well, as starting the fem lines. Is that do you find that to be a great way to like reintroduce strains that may, you know, some of the older stuff that you may be excited about, or something that, you know, people may, because that's the way, unfortunately, shit works, man. I hate hype, to be honest with you. And hype, unfortunately, there's you know, people chase hype, and the chasing hype things get forgot about. So do you see, you know, dropping fem lines a way to kind of, hey, you remember this fire strain now in fem? You know what I mean? To bring it back into the public eye, is that, you know, a great marketing ploy as well as an opportunity for breeding, you know, as well.
Yeah, like so what was the last bit of that question then?
You know, it's a great way to, you know, make things easier for the gardener, but is it a good marketing ploy, you know, to put them out as fems, or is it just
Yeah,
you know, a
no,
win-win?
like I think with feminized seeds, they've always got a place in the market because not everybody has the opportunity to have a veg room even to grow plants out and take clones, or you know, veg up a set amount of plants to get rid of. People are stuck with maybe a small room, or a tent where they can only put maybe 4 plants in there, so they need those plants to be feminized. So I think that way of things, there's always a place for feminized, and that's the reason I've started to make more feminized, because it opens up a new market, because there's only set people that will buy regular seeds, and then that way I get more people growing my genetics, and that's why I've made the lines that I've just made in regular. I've just made the exact same lines in feminized, which is what I'm testing now. So people can pick and choose: do they want to grow the regular seeds, or do they want to grow the feminized? And the price reflects that as well. So I'll do 12 seeds in a regular pack, or 5 to 6 seeds in a feminized pack.
So that's pretty awesome. I don't mean to like jump around on subjects here, but unfortunately, as we talk, I'm coming down your awesome page, as you probably already picked up. Man, so is, you know, actually like vegetable seed ever gonna come into Trichome jungle seed thing? Would that ever be like a side adventure, producing, you know, pumpkin seeds and all that other good shit as well? I hope.
Yeah. Maybe when I start doing more seed saving and stuff like that, I might do little free seeds of some sort of different variety of vegetable with my normal seeds. But yeah, it'd be something I'd like to do in the future. Maybe a web page to have all sorts of different seeds available.
Man, I just listened to an amazing book, The Triumph of Seeds. I'm drawing a blank on the author right now, but I'm sure you can find the book. Great book, man. I never realized how much was the value of seeds, you know, to be honest with you. You know, back in the day, man, that used to be, seeds were more valuable at one point than gold and everything else. You know, people traveled the seeds in search of, you know, new things, and they came back in seed form. And a lot of times, certain seeds, limited seeds, were more valuable than a lot of stuff. And medicines are made from seeds. I never realized how many 5% of medicines today, 5 to 10% of medicines today are actually produced from chemicals that come from seeds and stuff like that. And again, with, you know, so many companies like that produce, you know, GMO seeds today, Monsanto and shit like that. I'd love to see more guys like yourself putting, you know, heirloom type seeds back onto the market that are more quality, stuff like that. So that's why when I seen that, I was like, man, that's pretty fucking cool. Right, or at least show people on how to, make sustainability themselves, like you obviously are doing here. That's pretty cool, bro. Again, tip of the hat to you for that.
So do you grow from
Great
seeds
book, by
yourself
the
a
way.
lot?
Oh yeah. I've been my story. I grow for a lot of stuff from seed. I used to be a tester for the sub pool and a lot of breeders. Up to this day, I've been laying off a little bit because I've just been so busy with this adventure. I've been lazying out with posts and stuff like that. I laid back on post too, which affected my testing because this every day, keeping everybody. I got everybody in my garden every day, so it kind of creeps me out to keep things too current. I don't know if that makes any sense or not. So I laid back on the post, but yeah, man, I've been popping seeds for a very long time, man. I think I'm close to popping like right around the 300 strain mark, something in that ballpark.
And do you
I
grow
love that
do you grow
the
regulars
figure. I
and
love.
feminized?
Yes, I do. I've never really ventured down the auto trail yet. I've never been to seeing anything too impressive there. Although as of late, man, meet this adventure, meeting more people around the world and seeing how they use autos. But yeah, I do. I use thumbs. Thumbs are perfect, man. I was talking to a gentleman last night about him starting off late in the season, uh, and that's what he had available to him. You start plants right now, you don't have necessarily time if you're going to put them outdoors to pheno hunt or sex, I should say. I stumbled on words there. You don't have time to sex, so if you've got 5, 10 females, man, it's nice to have that guarantee. That's what you need to do, and that's how a lot of times I use the femmes. I prefer, the pheno selection of the regular seeds, but you know I'm limited. I'm unfortunately limited by numbers here, and numbers play a big part of way things go. I'm constantly monitoring my numbers. So if I get that whack-a-mole spot to where like I've got like a two plant opening, and I'm looking to bring something in, boy, are those femmes nice to slide in something new. You know what I mean? That I don't have to hunt down. I'm kind of got them guaranteed two females working through. Who wants to take a chance on two regular seeds at that point? You know what I mean? That's where the femmes fall at. They're nice for that. So a little bit of both. A little bit of both. If I were gonna order, I'd probably, preferably order regular form. But again, it's nice to have femmes. So it's tough. I run both. There's a need for both. I don't if that answers your question or if it doesn't. So yeah, I run both. I guess that's a better answer.
No, that's it. I'm the same. I don't what do you call it? I won't run something just because it's feminized seeds. I treat them both as equals. Do you know what I mean? A lot of the good clones, the elite clones, came from feminized seeds anyway. So,
But with that being said, though, I mean, we're looking cannabis. We've never stood on this precipice of cannabis. You know what I mean? Things are changing by the day. More and more, hopefully, people are taking out growing, and I'd hate to see some people discouraged, from the sexing part of cannabis. There's a lot of people, you know, that would rather start out with that guarantee, and if that's what takes them to get growing, then yay femmes. Yay femmes, you know what I mean? But with that being said, I'd rather see. I'm one of the people that like to learn lessons. I like to stumble and fall. You know what I mean? And stumble and fall on is regular seeds. If you're gonna start a long journey in cannabis, you might as well start learning lessons from the beginning, and why not start with regular seeds? Bump your head, learn the process right from the beginning and get nothing but better at that. But, you know, that's just me. Some people, if I were just starting out today, things may be different. I wouldn't go down the auto path though. I see that a lot today too, man. A lot of new growers trying to just go down that path. I don't know if I'd start there. It's
Yeah,
two
do you know
different
what?
growing.
The autos are quite popular here in Spain because people can get an early outdoor harvest using them. But I remember like the autos when they first came out, they just weren't very good at all. But I am actually seeing some nice looking things coming from the autos nowadays. I've even popped a couple of autos outside this year, which is something I've never grown before. So it'll be interesting to see what they come out smelling like.
See, and that's where I'd be tore on where to use it. You know, and before I thought, you know, that'd be nice to, you know, fill in the areas back here in between plants, throw one in here.
No, I don't think they've really got a place indoors unless you were to put a couple in your bedroom. Yeah. So you can get some flower out of your bedroom then.
Because I've seen some beautiful, anything that I've been impressed with, I've seen outdoors. Where all those outdoors, I haven't went, wow, them things got 6 or 7 feet. You know what I mean? I was impressed with, you know, outdoor numbers, like you said, but I've never seen anything indoors. I've been like, oh yeah, that's impressive. You know, that's the thing too. Is, you know, you can't clone it. You know, and that's my opinion. You know, you can't clone it. You're starting. It's money every time. I like to be able to clone. You know, it's we put a lot of work into pheno, and you know, it can be a medicine. It's recreational, but it can be medicine too. And they all affect each person differently, and the chemical makeup is different from area to area. And you know, your environment, where it's grown, the way it hits you, all are different. So if you find that one that is truly medicine for you, uh, you know, that's that chance of keeping that one, cloning it forever, and keeping it as medicine for you for as long as you need it. That's awesome. And, you know, I don't think we'll ever get to that with the autos. You know, I mean, that's not even I don't think a possibility. And even if it's a possibility, you're still taxing yourself forever. You know what I mean? You're still paying forever for the being when, you know, femmes or a regular plant, you can sustain yourself for a lifetime as long as you learn a decent quality.
No, that's it. That's it.
So what do you are you current? It sounds like you do make some nice hash with your leftovers there. So I guess this is another question too. I'd like to ask you about hash and your experience. Another good breeder question, I'll say. I've talked with a lot of people lately about the different effects from a seeded bud versus, you know, Sensimilia. I think there is some different effects from the cannabis smoked from a seeded bud versus that, you know, it isn't just more about weight or, you know, taste. I think the flower itself goes through a different process. You know, it's putting out a lot of energy to put out seed, but I think, you know, what's left over from the flower is different. I actually think it's, when we talk about cannabis from back in the day till now, you know, there's something to lower THC numbers, but we obviously got fucked up. You know what I mean? I think that when we look back, what was the difference? You know, we were smoking seeded pot back then. And I've actually talked to a few other. I talked to Kaya. he kind of hinted that he's noticed this difference too in the hash, you know, making hash made from leftover from the seeded bud versus hash from the flower, same strain. He's noticed, uh, and I've noticed a stronger hash material from that seeded product. Do you notice that at all? From, you know, a more stonier high from some of your seeded flour versus, some of the sensibility and non-seed.
Yeah, I find that the when you smoke the seeded flower, it gives you a different stone to it. It's like the THC has started to degrade much earlier, yeah, or stopped its production, and turned into something else. Something definitely happens. It's definitely a more sedative type of stone, yeah.
So with that in mind, do you purposely separate for the next step of hash making, or do you mix it all together? And, this is just.
No, I try to keep each plant separate and do a little sift of each plant. So then I have a little bit of sift hash from each of my plants that I pollinated.
So in indoors, do you ever just hand pollinate, or is it always just letting the male go in there and basically die off in there?
Yeah, no,
Do you
I
actually
do.
keep pollen and just
No,
experiment?
I do keep pollen as well, just to see, and as a backup. But the males that I use, I've got the males there ready to go when I need them. And yeah, like I said before, it's mainly 2 pollinations I do, and then I pull the male out.
So do you obviously keep the pollen for a good backup? Is that possibly how I've heard you talk about bringing back some strains? Is that the proper way you bring back some of them strains? Is some possibly store pollen from back then?
Yeah.
Or
No, I've got no pollen stored from my older stuff. I think the oldest pollen that I've got in there is probably about a year old, year and a half. So yeah, I don't like to keep pollen for too long in the freezer anyway.
is how is the future of cannabis over there? Is tissue culture something you guys are seeing over there?
Yeah, well, I played around a little bit with tissue culture, like more like micro propagation. I got a little kit and did that, just to sort of refresh my mother plants. But I didn't really notice much difference, but it was just nice learning about the whole process. But yeah, I'm not seeing many people really doing it.
I'm excited for it in certain aspects. As far as the preservation of strains, I'm super stoked about it for you guys as breeders because of I just think there's so much shit in the market anymore. So many people that have back crossed strains to bring them back, or they back cross them for their own sustainability, and they've gotten out of there. And so sour D. At some point, it gets mucky. What was actually sour D? And so, with that being said, I'm kind of excited about tissue culture for the breeder, and I'm hoping that it will slow down a lot of that need for other people to EX, other people's work, and cloud up the community with what isn't an accurate representation of the original breeder's effort put forward. Because, even for you, as we talked about, bringing back strains, it's tough to do. I mean, what you look like you were looking for, when you put things together, mother and father, the traits, the everything that you wanted when you put forth, but it's super hard to, go back and find something that was 100% and then put back something that was 100%. You know what I mean? You almost have to have, something close to, the seeds that you dropped of each, and then you worked your selection from there to put something forth. In my opinion, to get something that was even close to the original. And that's just my thoughts. But with tissue culture, that eliminates a lot of that bullshit, a lot of, recreation, a lot of worry of holding on to things. And if anything ever did get monkey, you could always pull mother and father back out of, out of the petri dish, and bam, there you guys go. There's your favorite strain again, and back to the petri dish. And you don't have to store as much shit. I just think that's a super cool tool that you guys might have in the future.
Yeah, no, definitely in the future, I think it's going to be a big thing. And also for sharing clones without any viruses or any insects on them. I think that's going to be another way to be able to do that through the tissue culture. But like you said, it would be an amazing way just to be able to keep your library like in cold storage just for the future instead of having mother rooms.
Boy, at that point that you're talking about with clones there, I would be excited for that era of cannabis, just because at that point my clone should come with a pedigree almost. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's 100% guaranteed. This is what it is. I've got my papers with it from the lab. You know what I mean? It's good. It's clean. It's good. It is what it is. I think that would be super cool that, we might just be able to go out and buy, pedigree clones at that point.
Yeah, that's one thing we haven't got over here is anything like that. Like no clone shops or anything like that. The growing is all a bit of a grey area, even though they have the clubs that cannabis is available at, but the growing is a little bit, you're not meant to really grow. So they get around of it by saying that they grow for each member of the club, but there's no clone shops or anything like that. Like Austria, they actually can sell clones, but they're not allowed to grow. So it works a little bit different over there.
That's kind of crazy. But yeah, that would be a cool thing, like a breeder certification. This is what I chose when I put this strain forward. You know what I mean? Guaranteed. This is what I was looking for. My favorite phenotype. I think there'd be a market for that. To be honest with you.
Yeah. No, that would be good. But yeah, so people could buy maybe 3 strains direct from you, but as a clone. Yeah.
Guaranteed paper. I think that'd be cool stuff. So is there some other than the the new strains out on the market that you have on your Instagram? There's some new releases that they should be keeping their eye out for, or some limited? Is the limited market something you work as well?
Yeah, do you know what? I find most of my lines are quite limited anyway. Every time I do a drop, there'll be some in there that will be limited that I'm not going to be remaking. So I do that anyway, but I'm not big on, this is limited. Do you know what I mean? I just drop it eventually. But I think things to watch out for are all my new feminized things that will be coming out soon. And the new lilt and the new cherry spice. I think people are already waiting for them anyway. But just keep an eye out for all the sacred selections in the feminized lines.
So I think I asked you this a little bit, but what are your favorite terps currently? I mean, as we grow, have you produced something yourself, or is there something out on the market that's got your is the apple of your eye right now? And what is that profile?
Yeah, no, I really like the tropical soul. I'm really enjoying at the moment. But like my personal favorite flavors are the cherry spice, the Shiva stash, the 100-hand slap. The 100-hand slap is super special. It's like a gassy rose water. So it has this rose water terp, and it's like it reminds me of these like raspberry rose water sweets I used to get, and it has this perfect rose water terp, but mixed with this gas, and it's just like so amazing to smoke. And any of my friends that grow it, it's like their favorite to smoke. So that one always stands out for me. So, and I think I prefer the more gassy sort of stuff. In the daytime, I'll smoke more of the like Mandarina and the lilt type things, those more fruity type strains. But in the evening time, yeah, I'm smoking some cherry spice or 100-hand slap, something like that. Do you grow outside at all yourself?
No, unfortunately not. I've been stuck indoors for many years. I've tried a couple of times, like just a quick, more or less anything I put outdoors has been an effort to save something or re-veg something that I didn't have room for. Because, like I said, numbers count here. You know what I mean? I'm very limited. So sometimes I've been guilty of, you know, something that I didn't take a clone of. So but I still want, but I don't necessarily want to keep in my count per se, have been mysteriously dropped off outside and naturally re-vegged out there for somebody to come back and take cuts off at a later date. But not necessarily, you know, growing all the way through to flower. Does that make any sense? But yeah, that's as far as the outdoor experience goes. Mother Nature can heal some girls too. Quick throw outside for a minute can revive some the health, overall plant health as well. But again, not though all the way through the flower.
No, that's it. It's getting to that time of year now where growing season will be in full swing. I'm just planting out loads of vegetables and things like that at the moment. So yeah, garden's starting to look nice. The actual sun's up now. It'll be time to go and water the garden soon. Yeah.
Man, I greatly appreciate you for getting up early over there and hanging out. And what'd you say? It's like 4:30 over there. Showtime.
Yeah. Now it's 9:30 now exactly.
What's your season like there? I mean, do you have to put out some more hybrids to get a good season on over there, or do you stay closer to the indica side?
No, we've got a good long growing season here. We can even flower things up till December. Yeah?
Oh shit.
So yeah, we've got really, really good weather. Most things come in around the first couple of weeks of October, some of the early strains, maybe end of September. But yeah, I'm not stuck that I have to pick just early flowering strains. So I'm quite lucky like that.
Super lucky like that. Do you take advantage of that outdoor and take a lot of sativas out there?
Yeah, and I'll even put some things out later on in the year. So you can put things that you've been maybe vegging inside and then put them out late in the year, and they'll carry on. They'll flip into flower, and yeah, so I tend to have something going right up until the end. That's it. This year I might start some of the Milana Indian seeds that I brought back from India. Last year I grew a few of them, and they were the last things that I harvested. So maybe pop a few more of them this year, see what flavors come out of them. Because I was quite impressed with the smells, but just not the taste. It really just didn't come through to the final smoke. But it had the actual terpene profile there. It was almost like a lemony, bubble gummy type thing. It was really nice.
Do you prefer your outdoor or indoor flower over there?
I really do love my outdoor flower here. Outdoor, it's just got something. I think the LEDs with the super soil indoors, I think that's going to be able to compete with the outdoors. So we'll see for flavour. But I just love my outdoors. I do. But indoors, when I haven't had it for a while, I do miss it, and I do enjoy smoking it.
You know, that's one of the things when I asked about the breeding earlier on, indoor versus outdoor. I just, again, this is all hypothetical. I just kind of think that, you know, if I were breeding outdoors, I would have, you know, I would be putting forth the best effort of what the plant could offer versus my indoor selection, you know, because it is based on, you know, my indoor environment. I know you said that they're similar, but you can't beat what the sun's bringing out at the plant, just like you're saying. You know, there is that difference. And I couldn't help but wonder if you're breathing outdoors, if that's captured in the seed as well. You know what I mean? Have you captured some traits that you wouldn't have necessarily brought out in those phenos that you would have brought out indoors during the breeding process?
Yeah. Yeah, but like what I think if I use the same male and female indoors and the same male and female outdoors, there's no difference in the offspring from the seeds. Do you see what I mean? But I think
I do get that. I do get that, but again, but with the environment playing a little bit key in there, it seems like even outdoors, you know, the stresses of wind and sunnier days and stuff like that, you know, would bring out different traits, you know,
yeah,
during the, you know, flowering time. I just could, you know,
yeah,
so
for
you're not
selecting,
saying that no chance that would have, you know, again, I'm ignorant here, so this is all a question. You don't think there's a chance that, you know, even a little bit of science captured there? And even more so if you worked it, you know, further, you know, you kept them seeds, you know, separate for a couple of runs. You know, these my outdoors, these my outdoors, indoor, and then, you know, kind of side by side them. I wonder if, you know, you would see a little bit different in the plant at that point.
yeah, I think if you kept making your seeds outdoors and had another one kept making your seeds indoors and used different generations over time, you would see a dramatic change then, I reckon. Definitely. But yeah, when I've done the same plants outdoors and made them indoors, just using the same clones, I've not noticed any difference in the offspring. But what I have noticed is sometimes the outdoor plants will put like almost a harder seed coating, or it makes a harder seed coating because of the fluctuations in temperature.
I could see that. So I'm curious to know this as well. Have you found a better female to male ratio indoor versus outdoor?
No, but then that would be interesting to do some data on that. That would be an interesting one. That would be, yeah. That's a good point. But no, I've not noticed it. But it'd be something that, yeah, it'd be good to do. But again, I'd have to pop really high numbers of seeds to really test that.
What brought that kind of question on is a while back ago, we had a conversation on a panel of like if different things during the time of conception of the seed there played like a role. You know, heat, temperature, maybe even if they took on the pylon that night or something like that, produce a greater amount of male seeds. Because there's been times where I've gotten seeds, popped them, all male, and then hear people, you know, that I can get one female. So I can't help but wonder if there's, you know, some kind of what causes that drift. Is it sheer bad luck that I got the, you know, the five males, or is the, you know, during conception there was a difference during pollination, excuse me, there, that made that difference, you know, from one batch to another, where there was more males versus female.
Well, yeah, no, I've had the same sort of thing happen to me, but like I think if you pop seeds, regular seeds, and you get 8 females or 7 females, someone somewhere is going to get 7 males. So it's normally 50-50. But I've played with the idea where heat, temperature, pH of soil, things like this can play a role on when seeds are germinating, whether they're male or female. And I've always thought this is the case. And by doing certain things, I can increase the amount of males or females. But other people will argue this point. So yeah, scientifically, I'm not sure, but I think the lighting hours can make an effect on the amount of males and females. So I think with higher amounts of light, you get more males. And with lower light, like starting your seeds on 12 hours, just to start off with, I think you can increase the amount of females. But that's just my opinion.
Oh no, you know, there could be something to that. I'm very torn on the subject myself, because I've heard a lot of the tricks, you know, about temperature makes a difference, like you say, maybe even light. And, you know, but again, that kind of, you know, science kind of wants to tell me it's predetermined at, you know, conception there. But, you know, I don't know.
But you can do it with chickens, can't you? By changing the temperature of the eggs, you can increase the amount of males and females. So I know that's scientifically true, but then whether it works the same with seeds, I don't know.
That'd be interesting to see some experiments on that time as well. And there's so much to be learned from this plant. Again, you know, who would have thought, you know, back in the day, we were always told that, you know, it was going to hinder our ability to move forward. But man, I've never seen that so far, man. You know, especially now that the growing side of things, I've seen this plant do nothing but make people grow both in intelligence and in their ability to do other things. It's quite so different than what we were, raised with the stigmas we were raised with. What actually is true with the plant nowadays.
Yeah, I think the same can be said for many other plants as well that people frown upon just because of what they contain in them, whether it's psychedelic type of mushrooms or DMT containing plants or mescaline containing plants or whatever. I think a lot of these plants are here to help teach us.
I absolutely agree. And it's nice to know that, nice to see that we're getting back to that type of remedy for ourselves, and we're becoming more and more open to plant-based medicine. I think that's where we kind of went wrong. We've been feeding ourselves with poisons for trying to cure ourselves rather than poisons for way too long. Obviously, it's not working.
Yeah, that's the problem. There's just so many things that are in our lives that are just full of toxic stuff, isn't it? This is what we they ban plants and make these plants illegal, but plastic and pesticides is no problem.
Yeah. It just seems wrong to be making medicines like that. Same stuff that are petrol-based. Aren't the same stuff that we're running our cars on and whatnot that we know is bad for us. It just seems wrong. Wrong. And
or the same companies making drugs that used to make pesticides.
Interesting enough is it's the same nasty shit that they pawn off as nutrients for us to grow with today. To be honest with you, it's a lot of waste. They tricked us into buying, their nuclear or wartime supplies. Back when the World War Wars, they had large supplies of nitrogen and stuff. And what they did is they tricked us into putting it in our plants instead of growing organically. It's kind of funny how that kind of stuff works. We've got too much of this poison we created. What do we do now with it? We have to find another use for it. We'll sell it to them. That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
So, is there any hopes for any events going on over there in Spain? It's a chance.
Yeah.
Are there even talks for Spanish this year?
Yeah, I've not heard of anything so far. The only things that I've heard in Europe is really the product Earth in the UK. And then I'm just waiting to hear of anything else at the moment.
It's a bummer.
Yeah, and I like even the product Earth. I can imagine a lot of people are going to turn up. It will be a good event, but I think a lot of people won't go to it. Like people from America, if they have to travel, or some of the people that just would have come to the events quite easily before and can't now. But yeah, slowly we'll get back to it.
So, you said that Spannabis was your biggest event. Is there any other events there that in the past that have stood out for you as something to check out if you were in Spain?
Yeah, I used to like the IC Mag, which used to be in Holland, in Amsterdam for a while, but recently got changed to Barcelona. So I've always been a big fan of the IC Mag Cut and the forum as well, the IC Mag forum. So yeah, that was something that I always used to go to every 420. So yeah, but that's same again. We haven't had that since the start of this these problems that we've had.
So, what would be one of your favorite ingestion methods of cannabis? Are you a flower guy, or do you prefer hash still, or have some of the other forms of ingestion? I mean, are you a fan of the rosin? Is that something that
Yeah,
that's big over there?
I'll dab things and stuff like that, but I'm not a big person for dabbing and that. My main things is flower, smoking flower in a spliff. Yeah, that's how I smoke.
No edibles.
I'll have edibles sometimes, but yeah, not big on edibles either. But I'll try and get a little bit of cannabis into my system every so often. Yeah.
Why not the fan of the edibles there? I'm curious. Too strong or not strong enough, or
No, I think it's a total different stone with the edibles. For me, like if I eat enough edibles, it's much more like almost psychedelic a little bit. It can be a little bit trippy, but whereas smoking it is more manageable. I can get on with my day and smoke a little bit, have a few tokes here and there. It works for me the way I smoke it. But yeah, edibles I think is a good way to go. Smoking anything's not good really for your health wise, but it's something that I enjoy doing. Yeah.
yeah, I enjoy the edibles myself. I just I've had a couple of really psychedelic moments with edibles, but that I found enjoyable. But I don't suggest. But for me, it's the not necessarily the high I'm looking for. It's more of a phase I need to get past to get to like the vitamin kind of phase of the edible. Yeah, I don't know if that makes any sense. For me, this is how edibles work. Day one, nice fucking, I could put together a nice buzz with edibles if I want to. Day two, kind of that laid back couch lock. I definitely eat another edible day two, but it's not going to be day one kind of buzz, but more relaxed, kind of hang out around the house, watch a little TV. Day three on the edibles is more like I've developed a little bit of a tolerance, and now it's more of a more of an all-out well-being. You know, the joints don't hurt, knees, our shoulders aren't bothering me, no back aches. I can feel like I get out there and take on the world. But it's that awkward up and then that plateau after that with the edibles after me. But you're right, if you're not, and there's no great consistency with them either. I don't, even with labeling indica sativa, I feel like it's very strain dependent, and again, phenotype, all that good stuff plays a lot into what's going into that. I think consistency isn't there with the edibles at all, as far as that goes. I can't find, buy one product that's a sativa and it's 50 milligrams, and it's going to hit me as the same product over here that's sativa and 50 milligrams, because they weren't made from the same strain. They're going to hit me different. So
Yeah, this is where I think terpenes play a massive role. Yeah. Because we've got so many different plants and they've got such similar sort of THC readings, but such a different high to the plant. And even things with lower THC readings that hit you more than a higher THC plant. And this all comes down to terpenes. I think we've got a lot to learn about terpenes.
For sure, for sure. And that's one thing that has been taken out of selection here when you go into a provisioning center here now. You know, everything's pre-packaged, and if you want to know about your terpenes or anything like that, it's on the white paper in front of you. You know what I mean? And that's tough for people to put in their head and go, okay, yeah, this is how that works. To
So
where
you
it
can't,
was natural.
you can't
It
smell
was
the
natural.
flower.
No, not really anymore. I mean, it's very limited. Back in the day, we could go, you could go in, there'd be a table full of, jars or whatever, and you could be like, oh, yeah, no, no, yeah, that one. And that's the way, in my opinion, it should be. That's, your nose will tell you automatically, this is the one, to where if you're reading them, it's hard for the brain to process instantly, how that works. It's too much. It's too easy to do it by your nose. And I never even, when I was going into the provisioning, even today, I don't like to look at those numbers. I would rather go by look and that smell, because those two right there have never let me down, to where I bought from numbers before. Oh yeah, that same. Oh yeah, that's a high number THC, and it's like, it's not as good as the stuff that I know is down there. It's it's that my nose and my eyes very rarely let me down on what's gonna work for me versus what's on the card. I don't think they will ever, and I've said this too. The only way to get over that hump there is to educate a lot of people, and I would think that would only come to where if you join a provisioning center, if this is your first time there, if you know or not, then they make you sit down and like watch a 10-minute video on terpenes and how it affects you or whatever. Force feed it to them until it's almost instantaneous, like nose in the jar. You know what I mean? I know you've been to every other provisioning center in the fucking town, but this is your first time here, like it or not. You gotta sit in the box and watch the video until it's embedded that deeply. To be honest with you, I don't think we're there yet with turd selection. I wish, but no, we can't nose jars. I guess that was a super long answer to that question. No, we can't nose jar. Not in a commercial setting. Especially now with COVID, my friend. You don't even, most days, most provisioning centers, it's been a minute since I've been, but most of them consist of now either phoning in your order and what you've seen online, or you pull up into a parking lot and they hand you a menu and a crayon, and you're like, I'll take that, 2 grams, take that, one of those, and then you hand the card and the crayon, and they take your money, and they come back with a sealed product that you don't test until you get home.
Yeah, see, here we only have the social club way, but everywhere you get to sort of basically see it pretty much in most of them before you buy it. But yeah, same idea as Holland, basically, where you've got everything there in front of you.
I'm still really hoping that the grow aspect of it, and that's why I want more and more people to drop seeds so we can keep the fight going. I think the provisioning centers and all that would be fine and great for the people that don't want to grow, the people that can't grow, maybe for medical conditions or whatever. But it just be there so just in case. But I would much rather see people growing their own stuff. These are for, like I said, research for people that just don't want to grow, can't grow, or whatever. But I think if it comes down to that, where they take away our home grow and they provided us with nothing but provisioning centers. I think, what's available to us at that point will be big corporations. It ain't gonna be the hundreds of strains that we're used to, that we've been spoiled with. Big money's gonna only limit that down to a few. So I think it's gonna be the home growers, the caregivers that keep, the really good cannabis alive. Keep pushing cannabis ahead. That's what I think the home grow will do. Again, like I said too, by taking away earlier on, by taking away that growing experience, they're really limiting the health benefits that come from the plant. You know, there's only so much benefits we get from smoking and taking those dabs. There's so much. I find the healing aspect of it really is right here in the garden. Spend the time putting the seeds in the dirt. Spend the time with the cultivation side of the things. I found that to be the most healing aspect of cannabis, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
And
gardening.
and vegetables, I mean, I'm sure you could get some of that from, cultivating other plants, but cannabis has a different draw for some reason, because maybe it is your medicine as well. I don't know what it is, but it's different.
Yeah, I think just gardening in general is just very like therapeutic and just beneficial for your health in that way. Like I think there's many doctors that will recommend people take up some gardening, take up keeping fish, things like this. So because it's a therapeutic thing to do.
I agree, but sadly enough, if it takes cannabis to get people there, then so be it. I mean, like you said, as time goes on, things are getting easier and easier for us. We're forgetting basic skills. I mean, just look at it like people's ability to remember phone numbers. A lot of us, myself, man, I used to remember everybody's phone number that I knew, and I still remember numbers pretty well. But a lot of us, what's your daughter's phone number? I don't know. I gotta look at my phone. You know what I mean? We're so with that being said, grocery markets pushing most of our foods. A lot of us have lost our interest or ability to grow things. If it takes cannabis as a medicine or recreation to get the interest back into cultivation in general for people, so be it. So be it. Because as I know and just opening that door, as you stated earlier, can open you up to so many new subjects. I mean, cannabis growing, and then you open that door to organics, and then it's funny how I've seen people work backwards with cannabis. So basically, what I'm saying is they seeking this knowledge, to grow great cannabis, and then they like ventured into like the organics, and then they go, oh shit, I can be growing myself good food and sustainability, and then it goes backwards from there. They start taking care of themselves last. Like, it's one of the things they could have been doing for. I don't know. It's weird, but and it does. Cannabis does open up a lot of doors, and that cannabis cultivation opens up a lot of doors, a lot of knowledge. So I hope people do drop more and more seeds. I hope this isn't one of these passing fates that they try to take from us. Because like you said, I've seen a lot of people go from growing cannabis and again backwards to or branching out to vegetables, gardens, succulents, other things, and it's a great thing. I love this plant. I love this plant. Trichome. I'm not afraid to admit that.
What time is
how
what
we
time
doing?
is it now?
4 a.m. I was just getting ready to check in with you, my friend, because you said the sun was coming up and watering responsibilities were getting near. Uh, we can, I might as well start the wrap up process, I guess, because I'm sure you do have things to do. I forget sometimes that, you know, you're halfway around the world in our time
Yeah,
schedule.
no. Yeah, mate, we can wrap it up, ask a few more things, and then yeah, I'll go about my day.
Well, first and foremost, I want to, tell you that I can't thank you enough for coming out and doing this, taking time, getting up early to come hang out and telling your story to both me and cannabis community. There's still 78 watching right now. I don't know if you've been keeping up with chat, but amazingly enough, there's still 80 people watching at 4 o'clock in the morning here in Michigan and around the world. So thank you for taking time to do that. And I also would like to tell you that I don't know if you checked out the channel and what goes on here, but there's a few things that go on here. There's a spotlight episode that we've done tonight, and then there's if and again you asked it to show us 5 hours long. It can be. We've done a pretty good portion of that this evening, but some nights it doesn't, and nights that it doesn't, I pick up and run with the wormhole, and that the wormhole is more of a it's opened up to past guests. It's a more panel show-ish type show, and it's open to anybody that has been on the show prior. So anytime you subscribe to the show, you see a wormhole, see a subject or some people you'd like to hang out with. This Zoom number that I gave you this evening is always the same. So you see a wormhole, or and you'd like to jump in, smoke, put your 2 cents in, or just hang out, you're always welcome. You don't need an invite for any wormhole. Monday nights are always mandatory wormhole. They start at 2 a.m. So you can always bank on a wormhole that evening if you'd like to plan on popping in one night. So, this has been a great night. Hopefully everybody that takes part in this community reaches out and makes you very welcome. So hopefully you come back and hang out again. Other than another spotlight, I definitely would like to get you back in a few months and find out the info on the LEDs, the changes you found out there, and do a one-on-one. But in between that, that Zoom number is always good. You'd be more than welcome to hang out anytime you feel like getting up early and hanging out. You're always welcome. So please note that that Zoom number is always good for you, my friend. You are now a part of the community, and you can take part anytime you'd like.
No, thanks for having me on. It's been good. You've asked some good questions. I hope people enjoyed the answers. But yeah, anyone that come and check out my Instagram page. Anyone that's got any questions for me, send me a message. I'm always got time to answer them. Just as long as it's like a full message already with some questions. That's it. I've always make time.
They are dropping your link there in chat to your Instagram, and I highly suggest you guys get over there, take a look at that page, and give him a follow, because there are some amazing genetics he's got over there. So I suggest you sub up and take a look and probably get some of the genetics in your garden, because it's hard not to look down that page and you go, God dang, I need to get some of that, because you've got some amazing stuff over there. And with that being said, the one thing I'd like to get before you go is my soundbite. Basically, if you don't know what the soundbite is, it's like an old radio station identification kind of thing, where the artist comes on. In this case, it would be like, in my words, hey, this is Eagle, and I'm on fucking Talking Shit with Eagle, episode 400. You can add whatever you want to that. Hey, check me out on Instagram, whatever. But basically, this would be your commercial for your episode. So if you could maybe hit me up with a sound bite for this episode, I'd be more than grateful. And I'm ready anytime you are.
Cool. So what, you want me to say it now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is Trichome Jungle Seeds with Talking Shit with Eagle. Episode, what was it, 400?
Yes, sir.
That's it. Nah, look forward to coming back on again.
And then, thank you so much for again for hanging out. It's been a pleasure, and I know we got off to a late start, but whatever, man. It was worth the wait. It was definitely worth the wait. So, and again, I look forward to hearing from you again soon. I can't thank you enough for hanging out. It's bought myself another night, another amazing night with the community, and a great meet with somebody like yourself and the cannabis beauty. Hopefully, someday I can make it to Spanibus and meet you firsthand, my friend.
Yeah, definitely a place to check out, and send me an address and I'll get you some seed sent out at some point as well.
And definitely not the reason I do this, but in your case, with the looking down that page, it's definitely an offer I'm not going to refuse. So I will send you those digits, my friend, and thank you very much. And have a great day. Thank you again.
Thanks. Bye.
Have a good one. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you guys for tuning in. I greatly appreciate you. 74 of you that are still hanging out. This wasn't a great episode. Thank you, GR420 Community Video, for sending me a heads up on getting him on the show. You guys are amazing. Again, if you guys aren't following along, great folks over there at the G420 Community Videos, you are missing out, man. They're halfway across the world, but some awfully cool folks over there for sure. But that does wrap up this episode 400, guys. Episode 400. We are just 19 episodes away from hopefully a 420, super fun 420 episode. We're getting there. Called out 1,000. We're at 400, 600 more to go. And then we'll see where it happens after that. But you guys know the deal. If this is the end of your journey, please get some rest. If this is the beginning of your day and you're just hanging out with us, catching the end of this episode, thank you so much, man. It means the world to me that you guys follow me through this adventure. So you guys know the deal. Random acts of kindness do save lives. Please take the time to do something nice for somebody. Doesn't have to be a major thing. Opening up the door, just checking in, looking at your cashier. How you doing today? A sincere hello, how you doing can make such a difference in somebody's day. A random help with some plywood in Home Depot parking lot to an elderly gentleman, somebody that needs help. So many little things can make a difference in somebody's life and make a huge impact. So don't be afraid to reach out and do something nice for somebody. I love you guys. Monday is a mandatory wormhole, so I will see you tomorrow night at 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And hopefully I will see you with some new ink on the side. Shiva will have some more shading. If everything goes right, I will see you tomorrow. Sword in the wormhole. Have a great day. Again, thank you, Trichome Jungle Seeds, for hanging out. Man, it was an amazing episode. Have a great day, guys. I am out of here. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one.